subscribe, like the video, and, if possible, join Patreon. But if you don't have much money, you can support the channel by watching the novels on euroaudiobooks.com. Remember that you can participate in the polls so that your favorite novel gets published for free.
He opened his mouth to the little girl in the carriage and said, "I have something to do, so I'll go first." Saying that, Lucy followed Luo Xingchen's footsteps and left. The blonde little girl came out of the carriage. "I want to stop the two people in front of me. Hurry up, hurry up. If you're in the limelight, it will be incredible." Lucy greeted Luo Xingchen to leave here quickly. The little blonde girl stared blankly at the two backs in front of her. It seemed to recall the bumpy carriage just now. I saw the pink coat of arms on the back of the big sister who was holding the handle tightly outside the car. And the eldest sister's companion, the older brother who stopped the carriage. It seems to be called The Stars. Chapter 78 time and the butterfly effect. Miss Lucy, behind the blonde girl. A group of people chased after him. Mother spat. Young Lucy called softly, "Huh," and sneaked out again. Spate gasped, his tone full of worry. "I'm sorry." Lucy bowed his head and apologized. "Master's work is very busy, and even if you go, Master." While Spate was still talking, Lucy tilted his head inadvertently. She saw a sight that was enough to make her excited. It was in the heart of Magnolia, full of lights, a tall building set off by many private houses. The most conspicuous is the flag waving in the wind at the top of the building. On the flag was the coat of arms that he had just glimpsed. "Mother Spate, what is that sign?" Lucy interrupted Spate. He pointed to the flying flag and asked, "Ah, that's the town's Sorcerer's Guild, fairy tale." 35 Spate explained. "Fairy tale?" Lucy stared at the sign on the flag, eyes twinkling. The scene just now reverberated in my mind. The pattern on the hands of the boy who controls the cold and the big sister who is reckless. All in all, it was as if a seed had been planted in her young heart. A sustenance of the soul. 22 seeds and dreams. Maybe at some point in the future, this seed will grow into a towering tree that reaches the land of dreams. In a clearing by the river that runs through the town of Magnolia, the boy with sakura-colored hair seemed to lose consciousness and lay here. It was covered in dust and scars. The boy's name is Natsu Dragneel. In a matchup with Gray just now, Natsu and Gray went there together. But unfortunately, Gray stood up first. And that means Natsu lost to Gray in this fight. On the slope above the clearing, the black-haired man with a swollen pig head and blood on his forehead fell to the ground weakly. He is Natsu in the future after some cross-dressing. There was no winner in the battle just now with the future Gray. But because young Gray won, so much so that the future Gray also proudly brought happy and planned to enjoy the food. The future Natsu did not go with him. At this moment, he looked at the figure below and said something in his mouth. I actually lost to Gray." He shuddered. It seems that such an ending is unacceptable. The arm resting on the ground clenched suddenly. "Impossible! Impossible! How could I possibly lose to Gray?" Mirai Natsu stood up and rushed towards the young Natsu. "I'm not convinced," he yelled angrily. "Get up for me." As he said, he was shaking the comatose young Natsu frantically. "You haven't lost yet. Come on. How can you give up like this? One more fight and win, Gray me." Looking at the young Natsu, who didn't respond at all, future Natsu was completely swept up in anger. He raised his arm. "I'm here to cheer you up." 35 snapped. He waved his palm without hesitation. Hit the young Natsu in the face. Even if the person in front of you is yourself. Get up quickly. Pa 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 pa. The continuous slaps slapped the young Natsu's face hard. Miku Natsu roared. "Ola, ola, ola." 99 The young Natsu, who had fallen into a coma, was awakened alive, slowly opened his eyes. Then he saw the nightmare that would accompany him for the rest of his life. It was a red eye. That long mouth showed rows of sharp teeth. The blood hanging from the black hair raised the ferocity of the person in front of him to the extreme. "Ugh! Monster!" The young Natsu let out a terrified scream. Even the corners of his eyes were filled with tears of fear. "What does it mean to say that you are a monster?" Mirai Natsu clenched his fists, shaking with anger. I don't know what you're talking about." Young Natsu stood up in horror. The scarf around his neck also slipped due to his movements. But young Natsu didn't pay any attention. Fire. Fire dragons, broken teeth. 99 The flames gathered in the hands of the young Natsu. But because of fear, so much so that the name of the move is called intermittently. With flames, the young Natsu waved his right hand. It's useless, idiot. Future Natsu slapped away Natsu's attack as a child. The palm that bounced back under the force inevitably went towards the neck of the young Natsu. The fingernail of the thumb directly cut through the neck, inflicted a bloody wound. The young Natsu let out a miserable howl. Mirai Natsu suddenly understood something. He touched his neck, where there is a scar identical to that of young Natsu's neck. After looking at his clothes, he stroked his hair. The future Natsu finally understood. The monster from childhood that I have always feared. Is it himself? The scars on the neck are actually caused by themselves? Natsu. A roar came from not far away. The two Natsu turned back together. He looked at the three-man cat that stirred up countless dust in the distance. Where do I stand? Urza yelled. 5. Luo Xingchen, who was behind several people, looked at the clock in his hand and said, Who are you all? Young Natsu covered his neck. With tears in his eyes, he grabbed his scarf and ran away. 4. Luo Xingchen's tone became a little anxious. Happy jumped into Natsu's arms first. 3. Luo Xingchen watched several people. Then Urza grabbed Natsu's hair. The accompanying impact made Natsu fall directly to the ground. 2. Luo 650 Xingchen increased his voice. Lucy grabbed Natsu's cuff desperately. 1. Luo Xingchen's hand unconsciously squeezed the pocket watch into pieces. Gray suddenly flew up. After crossing a short distance of 1 meter, he stepped on Natsu's body. What happened? Mirai Natsu screamed, while asking aloud, Goodbye, everyone. Luo Xingchen breathed a sigh of relief. Purple light spread from Natsu's body until it covers everyone's body. Brush. The light completely dissipated. The bodies of several people also disappeared in front of Luo Xingchen. Speaking of which, if I had told Makarov about the book and had it reinforce the seal, will this still happen? Looking at the disappearing figures of several people, Luo Xingchen murmured. However, then he shook his head again. This question is difficult to judge. If so, even if it changes the established fact. For example, Natsu's childhood shadow is himself. The scar on the neck was also caused by the future self. There are some other butterfly effects. If it does change. So what is going on right now? Time. Let's just let it take its course. After whispering something softly, Luo Xingchen turned around. The cool breeze of the night blew the ends of his hair. Chapter 79 The tit for tat, triggered by the S-class time flies in a blink of an eye. 3 years passed by slowly without knowing it. Flip over the calendar hanging on the wall. Looking at August 1st, X781 written above, Luo Xingchen raised his hands and stretched. He slapped his mouth. Luo Xingchen turned around and walked towards the bathroom. Although it is a little early, but today I had to go to the guild earlier than usual. After all, this year's S-level assessment has come. As an S-rank mage and the examiner of this assessment, Luo Xingchen will go to the assessment side of the mission with Laxus and Urza to prepare. Urza successfully passed the assessment last year, at the age of 15, become the second youngest S-rank wizard in Fairy Tail. Speaking of which, Mira Jane, who was also a candidate at the time, was indeed a pity. At the first stage, even past Luo Xingchen's level. However, in the second stage, facing the uncle who is absolutely impossible to release water, as Mira Jane is weak defensively, so that after a certain uncle's all-round indiscriminate attack, he fell to the ground. Urza, on the other hand, relies on the absolute defensive armor of the Vajra armor. Kankan stood last. Thus, Urza defeated Mira Jane by a narrow margin. This result made the silver-white girl unhappy for a long time. He even vowed to become an S-rank mage this year. Sure enough, Mira Jane was selected again this year. In addition to Mira Jane, there is Kana. This girl who uses card magic. Last year, he was selected for the S-level assessment for the first time. But unfortunately, the gap between her and Urza and Mira Jane is still quite large. Therefore, he was eliminated by Laxus in the first level last year. This year is her second year, but she was no less determined to win than Mira Jane. Also, Natsu and Gray were selected for the first time this year. Both are not weak. It can be said that this year is quite a year to watch. Hang the towel on the wall. Luo Xingchen slightly tidied up his black hair that had been curled up from sleeping. Dong dong dong. Suddenly, a hurried knock on the door came to Luo Xingchen's ears. No guesswork at all. With this kind of knocking, there would be no one else but Mira Jane. Helplessly sighed, Luo Xingchen walked to the door and opened it. Sure enough, the silver-white girl had her hands behind her back. She stood there smiling. The 16-year-old Mira Jane is nearly 1.7 meters tall. A pair of long legs can be described as very eye-catching. Of course, it is still much shorter than Luo Xingchen. After all, Luo Xingchen, now 17, has grown to 1.8 meters. Maybe because of the cold weather. Mira Jane is not wearing a halter today. The upper body is a black-lined leather jacket with rivets. She was wearing tight black ripped jeans covering her long legs. Boots that go straight to the calf. Sure enough, even the cold weather couldn't stop Mira Jane's bad heart. Speaking of which, today is your assessment day. Why don't you get ready to run to me? Luo Xingchen asked aloud. Even you didn't set out. Why am I in a hurry? Mira Jane smiled playfully. Also, when I made breakfast today, I accidentally made a little more and brought it for you. As she spoke, she stretched out her hands hidden behind her back. On top is a bento. Then he pushed Luo Xingchen away. He walked towards the dormitory on his own. As if returning to his home, he went straight to Luo Xingchen's room. Put the bento on the bedside table. Then his eyes began to look up and down the surrounding layout. He even played with the building blocks on Luo Xingchen's desk. You're really welcome. Luo Xingchen twitched the corners of his mouth. He walked to the bedside table and opened the bento on it. Speaking of which, is this what you said you accidentally did a little too much? Look at the many treasured ingredients lined up inside the bento. Luo Xingchen looked at Mira Jane beside him in amazement. I want you to take care. I heard the question. Mira Jane blushed in a rare blush. Then he immediately returned to normal and said, After all, Lee Sena and Elfman are growing up recently. What's wrong with me doing more? Since that's the case, then thank you. It just so happens that I haven't eaten, and I'm a little hungry. Having said that, Luo Xingchen sat directly on the bed and picked up his chopsticks. The scavenging of food began. How? Is it delicious? Mira Jane's eyes were fixed on Luo Xingchen. With a look of anticipation on his face, he asked softly. Luo Xingchen raised his head from the toilet, nodding in agreement. Not to mention, although Mira Jane usually looks like a bad girl. However, when it comes to cooking, there is definitely one hand. Not even worse than most chefs. After receiving the praise from Luo Xingchen, Mira Jane suddenly raised a smile, like a kid who got candy. Looking at Luo Xingchen beside him, Mira Jane grabbed a corner of the leather jacket with both hands. It seemed a little tangled, and he said awkwardly, I'm about to take part in the assessment. Can you bless me? Luo Xingchen's chopsticks stopped beside his mouth. The food in the mouth was roughly chewed twice and then forcefully swallowed. Looking at Mira Jane, she smiled slightly, putting her hand on Mira Jane's long white hair. Soft hair swept across his palm. Come on. I have always believed that you will pass the test this year, Mira. 5 Luo Xingchen said softly. Hey, Mira Jane chuckled. Dong 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 dash. Just then, the door was knocked again. With doubts, Luo Xingchen got up again and opened the door. What's the matter today? Looking at the crimson girl at the door, Luo Xingchen looked puzzled. By the way, this is the boys' dormitory. Do you guys go in and out so casually? I came in straight, and no one stopped me. Urza's tone was serious. Who dares to stop you? Luo Xingchen shook his head. Move the door open and let Urza in. I'm here to find you to go to the assessment site with you. So be prepared in advance. The moment Urza saw Mira Jane wandering around Luo Xingchen's room, the words in the mouth stopped abruptly. Mila. Urza frowned. Wang Li Hao. Bad tone. Urza, what are you doing here? Mira Jane narrowed her eyes. For a while, Xingchen and I are both examiners, so naturally we have to set off together. Urza answered seriously. Then he glanced at Mira Jane. When it comes to you, if you don't prepare at this juncture, aren't you afraid that you won't be able to pass? Are you defeated? What did you say? I'm your underdog. Mira Jane, immediately reluctant, immediately glared at Urza. Not to be outdone, Urza joked. Isn't it? A subordinate who is not even an S rank is a loser. BD Urza, isn't that an S class? I'll definitely be an S class this year too. You better think about how to pass me. I'm your examiner. Damn it, does the lady in armor want to fight now? I can't ask for it, skinny girl. Looking at the two people with their heads on their heads, their eyes are constantly exchanging. Luo Xingchen sighed deeply. Sure enough, these two can't be together. Chapter 80, S-Class Mage, Mira Jane Kingdom of Fury, St. Laurent Island. A 5-person island above the South China Sea. This is the location confirmed by Makarov for this examination. From the coastline behind Fairy Tale, it took only half a day to get here, and the battle followed. Boom! A violent black shock exploded around Luo Xingchen. Speaking of which, you seem to be emotional. Look at Mira Jane flying in midair. Luo Xingchen spoke out. Of course. Mira Jane raised her head. Having received Satan's soul, she seems to be even more wild. The silver-white hair was blown up by the magic. The right eye was pierced by a black crack. His body was covered in dark red and black tights. Hands turned into hideous demon claws. The demon wings behind him are not only inciting. That guy Urza just mocked me a while ago, so I must become an S-rank mage, or I'll be unable to raise my head in front of her for the rest of my life. Speaking of this, Mira Jane's tone was extremely fierce. Since last year, that guy has been dangling in front of me on purpose, so mad at me, Luo Xingchen said helplessly. Everyone is a companion of the guild. It doesn't seem strange for her to appear in front of you, right? It's not weird, but it's weird that the rigid girl keeps showing off. Mira Jane retorted. Every time she had a fight, she would talk about the S-Class. 653 said, and she curled her lips in disdain. Isn't it an S-Class? I could do it too. 99, he looked at Luo Xingchen. Although I didn't meet that armored girl this time, it's a pity that I couldn't beat her up. But I also have to pass. 9, so I will try my best. The words fell, and Mira Jane raised her fist. Surging magic power gathered around her. If that's the case, then come on. Luo Xingchen slowly stretched out his arm, signal for Mira Jane to attack. And Mira Jane was not polite at all. Immediately waving the wings behind him, he charged towards Luo Xingchen. Immediately after, it was the sound of successive explosions that seemed to travel far. On the other hand, Kana feels unlucky, very unlucky, because standing in front of her was a girl named Urza, as Fairy Tale's companion for many years. Kana knows who Urza is. If you meet other people, it may be because of some ability that they value. And let yourself pass the first pass. But if it's facing Urza, if you can't hit her, you'll never be able to pass her level. Urza is one such person. Serious, even to the point of being ruthless. Unsurprisingly, Kana was defeated. It is estimated that there are not even 3 moves after only fighting for a moment. Kana was pointed at the neck by Urza's sword, not daring to move at all. On the other side, there may be people worse than Kana. However, the parties may not have noticed this. Natsu with Sakura hair meets Laxus, who has been waiting for a long time. As the most combative Natsu in the guild, it may be the best choice to meet Laxus. After all, Laxus had never competed with Natsu. Therefore, Laxus is also himself apart from Luo Xingchen and Guildarts. The person who wants to challenge the most. However, the ideal is beautiful, but the reality is cruel. Kana and Urza had a few hits anyway. Natsu couldn't even last a round. It was defeated on the spot by a direct strike of thunder and angry waves. It was almost there, and Natsu hadn't even reacted. The whole person fell to the ground. Comatose. To say the best luck, none other than Gray. After all, the situation he faced was in the entire assessment. No, it should be a long-term assessment. The rarest case. There were only 4 roads in total, and he chose the one without S-rank mage's station there. Just when Gray was happy, Makarov's figure appeared in front of him. At that moment, Gray was stunned. Obviously, as the president, why do you have to come off the court in person to be an examiner? To this, Makarov answered, the reason is very simple. That is, I also want to try the taste of being an examiner again. Therefore, it is a rare situation that has not occurred for a long time. Without a doubt, in front of Makarov, Gray was honorably defeated with almost no resistance. This also made Gray understand the power of the so-called 10 sorcerers. The other side, although the ground is almost destroyed, but CCBB, Luo Xingchen, the examiner, is still standing here. That series of attacks that changed the terrain, it seemed that Luo Xingchen could not be bothered at all. Mira Jane stayed in the air. His chest heaved violently. Looking directly at Luo Xingchen below, the wings behind him stirred more quickly because of anxiety. Even Luo Xingchen below felt a gust of wind. It's the final blow. Magical power began to pour out of Mira Jane's body frantically. Hey, this is just the first test. You don't need to fight so hard, right? There is a second test behind you. It seemed like Mira Jane was going to do her best. Luo Xingchen persuaded. However, Mira Jane did not hold back at all. Whether it's facing you or facing the unknown second level, or in other words, no matter what kind of difficulty it is, I will do my best. That's the only way to be considered an S-rank mage. Soul Exterminator. Accompanied by a roar, a black sphere swept across this small space. The terrifying roar was incessant. Sunset West Mountain, Luo Xingchen, and others concentrated on the edge of the island. Makarov stood at the forefront, glanced at the people below, and said, looks like everyone's here. 99 attended as candidates: Mira Jane, Natsu, Gray, and Kana. At this moment, Mira Jane's magic power is sluggish, but the smile on his face could not be stopped. The gaze towards Urza was full of provocation. Kana lowered her head and rubbed the corners of her clothes with her hands, obviously not in a good mood. Although both Natsu and Gray were injured, some even just woke up, but it didn't affect the two people's constant bickering. Guildarts didn't come this time. Therefore, there were only 3 examiners at the scene. Laxus put his hands in his pockets, an impatient expression on his face. Urza looked serious. He chose to turn a deaf ear to Mira Jane's provocative gaze. As for Luo Xingchen, still the same lazy look. Sit on a raised boulder with your hands behind your back, waiting for the final result. Cough, cough. I see all your efforts. Makarov coughed twice. Start announcing the results. Mila, your ability has been recognized by the examiner and me, so? His old face raised a smile. Congratulations, you have become an S-rank magician. Very good. Mira Jane clenched her fist in excitement. It's like a child getting compliments from adults. I ignored the frustrated Natsu, Gray, and Kana. Mira Jane came to Luo Xingchen. With his hands behind his back, he showed a sweet smile. Xingchen, I've become an S-class wizard. Mira Jane looked like she was about to compliment me. Luo Xingchen was stunned for a moment, then smiled. Get up from the stone. He rubbed his silver-white hair again. Congratulations, Mira. You've changed so much. Hearing the compliment, Mira Jane's smile brightened even more. Young people these days. Makarov smiled and shook his head. Cut. Laxus, who felt a little sweet for some reason, turned his head away. Staring, 35 Urza just stared silently in that direction. His hands clenched tightly involuntarily. Chapter 81. Emergency Assignment of Crusade Missions X-782. It has been nearly a year since the last time Mira Jane became an S-rank mage. During this time, the team of Luo Xingchen, Urza, and Mira Jane has completely confirmed the title of Fairy Tale's strongest team. The 3 people in the team are all S-rank mages. Without exception, during this period, Luo Xingchen et al. Also took on many S-level tasks. All are successfully completed. Became the record holder for 100% mission success rate in the Fairy Tale Guild. Although halfway through, 2 girls who are born at odds will always quarrel from the beginning to the end. But in Luo Xingchen's view, the more they fight, the better their relationship actually gets. During this period, I will occasionally bring Elfman and Lisana, or Natsu and Gray and others on a mission together. It is also a practice. After all, it is the younger generation of the future of the guild. Still needs more attention. During this year, many newcomers came to the guild. The most impressive is a masked man named Mystigan. This man is strange. His whole body was wrapped in heavy clothing, and his face was covered by a blue face towel. Only one pair of eyes remain. Behind him are 5 magic wands of different shapes. When joining Fairy Tail, he even used hypnosis magic to hypnotize everyone in the guild. Except for Luo Xingchen and Makarov, who were powerful at the time, they were not affected. For this kind of strange phenomenon, Luo Xingchen immediately recognized who this guy was. From another parallel world, the Prince of Idolas. Jalal, because it has the exact same face as Jalal, whose world has fallen into darkness. Therefore, he chose to cover up his identity with a mask, so as not to be misunderstood. The main thing, of course, was that Urza would recognize it. The one who caused Urza's childhood shadow. It is this world that has fallen into the dark Jalal. After a brief understanding of the reason why Mystigan did this, Makarov still granted his request for membership. Although according to the memory of the previous life, Luo Xingchen knew that Makarov would definitely agree. But Luo Xingchen still asked Makarov why. Why would you agree to join a guild with someone who can't even show his face? That is the day. Luo Xingchen will never forget what Makarov said. Although this child has been covering his face, I can still see the kindness in his eyes. Like most of the people in the guild, this child is burdened with a painful past. If there is no one to rely on and correct guidance, he will easily go astray. And letting a young man go into the dark is something I absolutely don't want to see. Yes, Makarov has always guarded the children of the guild like this. Give them the right guidance, guide them on the right path. He never cared whether these children were dull, don't care about their background, don't care about their past. He just wants them to be on the right track. That's enough. This is Makarov's wish, a simple but incomparably great wish. Except for Mystigan. There are also a few newcomers. Free Justine, who uses spell magic. Evergreen, using petrification magic. There's also Bixlow, who uses star map magic. The 3 were brought back by Laxus, and the 3 have always worshipped Laxus. To this end, the 3 also established a Laxus guard called Thor. However, Luo Xingchen discovered that fried among the Thor group. I'm afraid it's not just worshipping Laxus. Fairy Tail. This guild will always have no shortage of noise. During the rest of the mission of many mages, they always choose to soak in the guild all day long. Order a beer. Tell your friends about the scenery you saw during the mission, or interesting people or things. As usual, Luo Xingchen pushed open the door. Fire Dragon's Iron Fist. 35 attack, as usual. Almost used to it, Luo Xingchen raised his hand. One of the very ice dragon's brain snapped. The huge force bounced on the head of Natsu, who was rushing towards him. Yeah. With a scream, Natsu went back the same way. Overturned a lot of seat benches. Thank you for a glass of milk. Ignoring Natsu, Luo Xingchen came to the bar and said to the waiter, "You look good today, Xingchen." Makarov sat at the bar as always, with that funny clown hat on his forehead. Holding the scepter in his arms, he said to Luo Xingchen, "After all, I've had enough rest recently, and I'm planning to take up the task." Luo Xingchen took the milk handed over by the waiter. Sitting in front of the bar, I gently blew the boiling hot milk. "It's good to accept the task. You have been decadent for a while." Makarov nodded slightly. "What is decadence?" Luo Xingchen complained. "I just took a break and Urza and Mira Jane agreed." "Well, it's all the same." Makarov waved his hand. "Forget it. What about Urza and the others?" Makarov couldn't argue. Luo Xingchen turned his head and looked at the guild. There was no sign of Urza or Mira Jane. Can't help asking doubts. After all, he is a teammate. It's up to everyone to be there for a mission or something. Urza's words, "I just said I went out to buy cakes," Makarov replied. As for Mira Jane, it seems to be training Elfman lately. Training Elfman? Luo Xingchen wondered. Hearing this, Makarov nodded and smiled, and said, "After all, that kid has always wanted to become stronger." 35. Obviously, I used to like to cry and cry, but now I like to yell at man. 5. I have to say, Elfman has grown a lot. Think of this. Makarov took a sip of the wine glass beside him. It seems to be pleased with Elfman's determination. It seems that Elfman has also started to learn to be strong. Luo Xingchen also smiled, drained the milk from a glass in one gulp. He stood up when I was about to go to the second floor to pick up the mission. A blue-letter bird flew in from the window. Mr. Makarov, there's an urgent email from you. 39, I'm here. Makarov raised his hand, removed the letter from the letterbird. Thank you. Thank you politely. Then I opened the letter and looked at it. His face gradually became dignified. He slowly raised his head to look at Luo Xingchen, who was beside him. Said, Xingchen, maybe you don't need to go to the second floor to choose a task. Huh? What was written on the letter? Luo Xingchen asked aloud. Makarov nodded and said, Urgent crusade. Handed the letter to Luo Xingchen. Makarov continued, Speaking of which, this is not the first letter recently. I heard that it is because many wormholes of different sizes that can absorb magic power have appeared inexplicably on the mainland recently. These wormholes generally appear in places where there's a lot of magic, and the gathering place of monsters couldn't escape. Once the magic power of a certain place is absorbed, it will take a long time to recover. Having said this, Makarov paused, then said in a deep voice, And once the magic power is lacking, these beasts will instinctively find a new home. The migration of a large number of monsters will cause unimaginable damage to the human world. Therefore, in addition to the Council's own efforts, some places that cannot be taken care of will also issue urgent tasks to request the help of the guild. So, the errand fell on my head. Luo Xingchen raised the task order in Yang's hand. The name of Luo Xingchen is designated on it. Well, after all, you're a guild's S-rank mage. Guild Arts and Laxus have been carrying out such missions recently. Makarov said, Well, after all, the bounty from the council is fairly generous, and I took the task. 99 Luo Xingchen accepted the task order. Upon seeing this, Makarov nodded. If that's the case, then you should leave immediately. You probably won't have time to wait for Urze and them. I understand that I can do it myself. After saying that, Luo Xingchen turned around and walked outside the guild. Chapter 82. The demonic beast called the Beastmaster the day after Luo Xingchen set off. Inside the fairy tale guild. You mean Xingchen left yesterday? Mira Jane looked at Makarov ahead in disbelief. That's it, and it's not just the stars. I'm afraid even you are going. While talking, Makarov took an order form from the drawer. Is this what the council gave? Mira Jane took the order. Look carefully. At the top, a big S is written in red font. It is said that the preliminary evaluation of this mission has reached the level of the S-class mission. Below is the official seal of the council. Then comes the content of this mission. The crusade against the monster called the Beast. Mira Jane murmured. Makarov on the opposite side nodded. The nature is the same as what the stars received yesterday. It's all beasts riding because of inexplicable wormholes. 35. I guess it's you this time, and Urza the next time. 653. As if thinking of something, Makarov continued. Of course, although it is a designated task, you also have the right to refuse. After all, the council has not been able to enforce the freedom of sorcerers. 35. However, since it's an urgent mission, you have to make a decision quickly. And if you don't want to go, find the next person early. 35 next? Urza. Mira Jane narrowed her eyes. Then he slapped the task delegation on the table. I've accepted the mission. Also, this mission is just right to take Elfman and Lisana to experience it together. After hearing Mira Jane's words, Makarov pondered for a moment, just nodded. Having those two kids meet up will help them grow as well. But you must pay attention to safety. Bring them back safe and sound. Mira Jane smiled suddenly. Don't worry. Then he went to find Elfman in a hurry. Southgate Park outside the guild. Under a big tree, an angry man and a cat are sitting under a big tree. One person and one cat keep the same movement. He clasped his hands together. His head glanced in the opposite direction. Seems to be angry. Really? Did you quarrel again? 15-year-old Lisana has grown into a slim girl. At this moment, the girl put her hands on her waist. He looked at Natsu and happy, who were sulking with each other in front of them. As a guild peacemaker, Lee Sana, who is looking forward to the guild's continued harmony, no matter what the conflict is, we will try our best to help mediate it. Even the war between Urza Mira Jane that no one in the guild can avoid, I'm afraid only Lee Sana can reconcile it. Oh, Lee Sana. Natsu greeted Lee Sana. Natsu is too much. Seeing Lee Sana coming, Happy puffed out her cheeks. He gave Natsu a stern look. Said, he actually ate all our fish. What does it matter if you let me eat a little? Natsu still didn't care. Really, even if it's a family, there will inevitably be conflicts, but quarrels are not very good. After all, you're not children, aren't you? Lee Sana smiled and spoke softly. Hey, Lee Sana, it's time for us to go to work. Just then, Elfman's shouts came from behind Lee Sana. Is Mila-san too? Look at Mira Jane behind Elfman. Lee Sana said with some surprise. However, aren't Brother Xingchen and Sister Urza here? Urza hasn't come to the guild yet, and Xingchen's words have been assigned a mission yesterday. Mira Jane replied, a mission? It's really rare for Brother Xingchen to do a mission alone. Lee Sana nodded, then asked, what is the mission? 35 S rank. We have to help my sister to complete this task together. Speaking of this, Elfman looked excited. S-class. Are you kidding me? Natsu jumped up from the ground. His eyes turned to Elfman and Mira Jane with surprise. To know, even before Luo Xingchen and others would take Natsu and the others to perform missions together. But it's just some more difficult A-level tasks. After all, considering the experience, nor can they be asked to do tasks beyond their ability at one time. As such, the S-class mission was foreign to Natsu. Also extremely curious. What mission? Happy asked aloud. It's an urgently designated crusade mission issued by the council to crusade the rioting beasts. Mira Jane answered with her arms folded. Urgently designate a crusade mission? How cool. 99 Natsu looked at Happy beside him. At this moment, the eyes of one person and one cat are full of amazement. He completely forgot the fact that he was still arguing just now. Mira Jane looked at Natsu and said, how about Natsu? Do you want to come together? This is a good opportunity to gain experience. 99 Mira Jane's voice just fell. It was opposed by Elfman. True or false, I don't approve. 95 saying that. Elfman raised his fists. Showing the muscles in his arms, he said, I've gotten a lot stronger with my recent workouts. Since you are a man, you should protect your family by yourself. Hearing Elfman's words, Natsu jumped up and down in a hurry. What? Don't be so stingy. Okay, Natsu, if that's the case, I'll take you with me next time. 5 Mira Jane interrupted Natsu by looking at the time. Then look at Elfman and Lee Sana and say, then we have to hurry. Time is running out. 35 after speaking. He took Lee Sana and Elfman away with him. I want to go too. Natsu sat on the ground in frustration. Look at the back that gradually leaves ahead. I don't know why. He always has an uneasy feeling. Don't forget to come back with a gift. Happy was still waving goodbye. Time is approaching afternoon. The closed door of the guild was slowly pushed open. Xingchen, are you back so soon? Urza came up and said hello. When I came this morning, Urza learned about what had happened recently. It is also known that Luo Xingchen and Mira Jane have each set off to perform urgent tasks. I thought it would take a few days to come back. I didn't expect Luo Xingchen to do it in one day. After all, the journey is not too far. Luo Xingchen replied. After that, I came to the bar and handed in the settlement statement for this mission. Well done, Xingchen. As expected, there is nothing that can't be settled if you go out. Makarov smiled and nodded. President, your tone. Isn't there such a task waiting for me? Luo Xingchen looked suspiciously at the horse 1.1 Karov. What are you thinking? If anything, I'd have Urza do it. Makarov countered. However, Mira Jane also has an urgent mission today, so I'm not sure if it will be in the future. Mila. Luo Xingchen looked around suspiciously. Indeed, Mira Jane is no longer in the guild. Not even Lee Sana nor Elfman were found. She didn't take Lee Sana and Elfman with her, did she? Luo Xingchen suddenly thought of something. Immediately asked. Makarov nodded, said to take them to experience. 99. What mission did they perform? Luo Xingchen. who was almost sure of his inner thoughts, continued to ask. Makarov frowned slightly and recalled the content of the mission in his mind. It seems to be a crusade against the monster called the Beast. As if thinking of something again, he added, "It is said that the locals call it the Beastmaster." Chapter 83, Catch the Thief First. The King. Mirajane's decision, Beastmaster. Luo Xingchen was slightly taken aback. Isn't this what Elfman forcibly received in the original book? But because its own strength is too strong, the Beastmaster who controlled Elfman in turn? Even so, Lysana was seriously injured and was sucked to another parallel world Edolas. It didn't come back until 2 years later. Brows furrowed slightly. Luo Xingchen looked at Makarov. President, when did Mira and the others leave? Although it is strange why Luo Xingchen cares so much about this task. But Makarov said it anyway. In terms of time, it's probably in the morning and should have arrived at the mission location by now. Morning? Luo Xingchen pondered for a while. Said, President, borrow your magic four-wheeled vehicle. I need to rush to take a look. Boy, I can't see it. Do you still care about Mila when you've been lazy all the time? Makarov looked up and down Luo Xingchen. Said with a smile on his lips, worry is definitely there. As far as I know, that Beastmaster is not easy. I always have a bad feeling. These words were indeed Luo Xingchen's thoughts. Although in the original book, Lysana did not die. However, this is not an anime from a previous life. This is the real world. What's more, there's a butterfly like himself. Who knows if it will stir up more 22 waves? In case the Berserk Elfman is trying harder. In that case, Lysana might actually die. Having said that, Luo Xingchen paused. The tone was unprecedentedly solemn. And based on my experience yesterday, the scale of the beast riot this time is huge, and even an S-rank mage will be in fatal danger if he is not careful. If it was Mila, I believe she could save her life even if she lost, but he raised his head, his eyes fixed on Makarov's aged face. Shun Sheng said, and Lysana and Elfman next to her. Hear Luo Xingchen's analysis. Even Makarov, who had always believed in these children, was inexplicably pale. The smile just now disappeared completely. Bowing his head slightly, he seemed to be thinking about what Luo Xingchen said. After a while, he sighed. If you want to do it, do it. The old eyes met Luo Xingchen's eyes. However, if it's not at a critical moment, I don't recommend you take action, after all. As a wizard, whether it's Mira or Lysana and Elfman, they all have their own path to follow. You can't help them all the time. I understand. Luo Xingchen nodded. He reached out and took the key from Makarov and said, but sometimes it's just because of mutual help that we can be called companions, right? 55 Makarov was taken aback. Then he shook his head helplessly. So, you guy will always be inexplicably mature when it's critical. 5. If that's the case, I'll go with you. Urza, who had been listening in just now, said aloud. Looking at Urza, Luo Xingchen nodded. Although Urza and Mirajane have always been against each other, but Urza still cares about Mirajane at crucial moments. Then let's go now. Arnon Town. An ordinary town without any brilliance. But it is precisely because of its ordinary there is no dark union here, and there is no such thing as a bandit. Thus, the town's inhabitants are bland, though, but had a different kind of happiness. However, all this was completely destroyed yesterday. Many magical beasts from nowhere violently broke into the town. These beasts possess magic that ordinary people cannot resist. Countless balls of light containing magic power spit out from the mouths of this group of beasts. Even if only a mere one falls to the ground, can cause exaggerated explosions. They also have huge bodies that surpass ordinary people. Just wave your arms. It will destroy the houses that bear the hearts and minds of the residents. Weak human, in the eyes of this group of monsters, it is just a delicious ration. A time, countless explosions, cries, and roars filled the city. That's just hell. As soon as I got the news, the Magic Council mobilized the nearest night order. But despite this, the attack of the monsters could not be stopped. After all, the knights were still too weak after all. The arrival of reinforcements is far from expected. Therefore, the Magic Council issued a commission to the most recent mage guild. After that, many mages joined in. The war is beginning to develop in a good direction. But it doesn't stop there. Among the monsters, there is a huge figure that surpasses all monsters. Beastmaster, once the king of the gathering place of monsters. The strength it possesses is not comparable to other monsters. So much so that even the magicians have returned from the Beastmaster. The arrival of Mira Jane et al. At Fairy Tale. After learning about the scene, Mira Jane immediately decided to lead the Beastmaster to the outskirts alone. In this way, the pressure in the town can also be relieved to some extent. It can also reduce the damage in the city. After all, if the monsters lose a leader like the Beastmaster, it's just a mess of sand. With the cooperation of other mages in the city, it can be cleaned up quickly. But if there is a Beastmaster, it will be different. The so-called principle of capturing the thief first and capturing the king. Mira Jane learned a lot from Luo Xingchen some time ago. Do it when you think of it. Mira Jane briefly explained his battle plan. It welcomed the approval of Elfman and Lysana. So the action began. Mira Jane is the main offense. Elfman cooperates. Then Lysana went to evacuate the residents of the city who had not yet fled. Mira Jane is one of the top performers in Fairy Tale. Go straight to the strongest Beastmaster. Under the blessing of the soul of Satan, even once suppressed the Beastmaster. Another blow hit the Beastmaster's cheek head-on, knocking him back several steps. Mira Jane withdrew her fist, suspended in mid-air. She smiled slightly. It seems that you are not very good. 35 the wings behind him began to incite violently. Mira Jane turned and flew towards the periphery. The Beastmaster, whose cheeks were smashed, let out an angry roar. Immediately, 657 stepped forward and chased after Mira Jane. Every step of the huge body will cause a slight tremor on the ground. A dull sound echoed around. He seemed to sense that the figure was not catching up with the figure in front of him. The Beastmaster stopped. After looking in Mira Jane's direction with unwilling eyes, he headed towards the center of the town again. This guy, are you still chasing after this? Mira Jane stopped, frowning slightly. But the next moment, the boulder that erupted from the ground smashed into the other cheek of the Beastmaster again. Below, Elfman, who received the Iron Bull's arm, remained in the throwing posture. Hey, that big guy. Although, because of fear, even the speech was a little intermittent. But Elfman didn't take a step back. He reached out his hand and tickled provocatively, then continued to run towards the outside. Immediately, the Beastmaster was completely angry. Although he is wise, he is not high. However, it was precisely because of his low IQ that the Beastmaster didn't think much about it. Immediately took steps to chase after Elfman. After all, you can't catch the woman who is flying around, but when can a little trash wizard be able to provoke himself? Nice job, Elfman. Looking at the angry Beastmaster has stepped out of the border of the town. Came to the empty perimeter. Mira Jane smiled slowly. Very well. Now you don't have to worry about destroying the town and killing the residents. He looked at Elfman, who was gasping for breath, behind him. Mira Jane's face also became serious. Get ready, Elfman, to fight. Here we go. Chapter 84, Demon and Beastmaster. The beginning of the battle roar. The angry Beastmaster let out a harsh roar, headed straight towards Mira Jane. Elfman, you take cover around, but the main thing is to protect yourself. 5. Mira Jane explained to Elfman behind him. Sister, I know. Elfman nodded heavily. Seeing this, Mira Jane turned her attention to the Beastmaster, who was rushing forward. At this moment, the Beastmaster has come to Mira Jane. The raised fist slammed down. Mira Jane, who had received Satan's soul, vigorously fanned the wings on her back. The huge acceleration force took Mira Jane directly into the sky, dodged the blow of the Beastmaster. A lot of strength, big guy. Looking at the ground because of the punch of the Beastmaster, and there are many cracks. Mira Jane teased. Then he stretched out the devil's claws and spread his 5 fingers. A dark magic circle flickered in the center of her palm. Dark sparks. Immediately, dozens of pure black magic light bullets shot directly towards the huge body of the Beastmaster below, due to the distance. In just a moment, the body of the Beast King was completely enveloped. Boom, 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 one. The explosions that sounded one after another stirred up countless smoke and dust. Did you make it? Already dodged aside, Elfman, who was waiting for an opportunity, stared at the smoke and dust. It's not that simple. Mira Jane also didn't let up. Sure enough, the next moment, a roar came from the smoke. It was like a substantial sound wave that completely dispelled the surrounding smoke. The angry Beastmaster slammed the ground with both hands. The bow-like feet give the Beastmaster an unimaginable jumping ability. The huge body jumped directly. The clenched fist swung towards Mira Jane in midair again. Mira Jane's pupils shrank, seemingly unexpected. The Beastmaster actually had a way to attack her in midair. When she reacted, the fist of the Beastmaster had already filled her line of sight. Almost by instinct, Mira Jane raised her hands and crossed them in front of her. Boom! Mira Jane flew straight out. He flipped several somersaults in midair before barely stabilizing his body. It's quite capable. He shook his numb arm. The wings behind Mira Jane fluttered. With Mira Jane sprinted up at a very fast speed, he slammed into the falling Beastmaster fiercely. The huge impact made the Beastmaster let out a whimper. It's not over yet. Mira Jane's palms overlapped with both hands before the Beastmaster landed, touched the belly of the Beastmaster. Super cruel flash. The magic circle unfolded again. The flash of sin and darkness that converged instantly illuminated the sight of the Beastmaster. Then it exploded. Boom, 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 dash. There was a burst of explosions in the air. Elfman stared blankly at the huge body that fell from the smoke in midair. Sister, is it already this strong? He murmured softly. Ho, ho, ho. The landed Beastmaster stood up in embarrassment. He let out an unintelligible roar at Mira Jane, who was floating in front of it. Huge fists beat his chest constantly. The Beastmaster stepped forward again. The fist that condensed magic power went straight to Mira Jane. Darkness wrapped Mira Jane's fist, even in the face of a fist that is much bigger than himself. Mira Jane was not afraid at all and slammed it directly. Boom! The swept-out air waves poured out towards the surroundings. Mira Jane stepped back several meters. However, the Beastmaster on the opposite side is even more miserable. Under Mira Jane's violent magic, he was directly knocked into the air and fell to the ground. Then this trick will solve you. Mira Jane clasped her hands around her waist. The dark magic circle unfolds again. In the center of the magic circle, the head of the devil is extremely ferocious. Immediately after, a great deal of darkness began to compress into a basketball-sized ball of pure black magic in Mira Jane's hands. Soul Destroyer 35, the pure black magic sphere, turned into a terrifying shock that blocked his sight. A violent explosion resounded from the edge of the city. The body of the Beastmaster was swallowed up by this black torrent. Even the wailing was obscured by the explosion. A long time. The shock dissipated. The scarred Beastmaster fell weakly to the ground. There was no movement. Mira Jane landed in front of the Beastmaster in the end. The bright red lips rose slowly. Although the consumption of magic power is very large, it has finally solved this guy. However, it's a pity to let you die like this. Why not? An idea popped into her mind, and Mira Jane turned her head to Elfman. Elfman, come and see if you can take this guy. Elfman, who was not far away, suddenly showed a happy smile. You know, this is the Beastmaster. Although he was completely suppressed by his sister, but it is also beyond the power of ordinary S-rank mages, if you can get hold of it. Just as Elfman was about to take a step there, but suddenly his eyes widened. Looking at Mira Jane's back in horror, the behemoth that stood up silently. Sister, sister, be careful behind. 99 Elfman let out a hysterical cry for the first time. Suddenly, the doubtful Mira Jane turned around, and I saw the huge fist that suddenly swung down. What? Roar! With the roar of the Beastmaster, the fist with all his strength smashed directly on the unsuspecting Mira Jane's body. That's right, just defenseless. Mira Jane, who thought the battle was over, never thought of it. The Beastmaster was still able to stand up. Boom! The roar mixed with blood spilled into the air. Mira Jane's whole body flew out directly. Mira Jane, whose defense is a shortcoming, is under such an attack. Even the transformation of Satan's soul was forced to be released. It smashed hard on the mountain not far away, not far from the town of Arnon. In the smoky dust, a magic quadricycle with fairy tale's coat of arms was coming fast. Inside the car, Urza gripped the side armrest tightly. With a pale face, she turned her head and said, "I can already see that city." Indeed, through the windshield, you can already see the fire in the city ahead. That is the trace left after the beasts ravaged. It's hard to think. Wanli Zhao, Xiang, the whole town is shrouded in flames. Urza's pale face revealed solemnity. Is it almost there? The back seat of the magic four-wheeled vehicle. Gray, who was clinging to the seat back, asked aloud, "Well, help! Aside." Natsu raised his arm with difficulty and let out a whimper. Natsu, who already dazzled all means of transportation, almost lost consciousness now. Even the speech was a little vague. Originally, Luo Xingchen didn't plan to take Natsu and Gray with him. However, out of concern for their companions, the two forced to follow. However, in Luo Xingchen's view, the two of them probably wanted to experience the so-called S-rank mission. But this town is so big. Can Mira and the others be found there? Urza turned her head. Looking at Luo Xingchen, who was constantly controlling the steering wheel, he asked, "I can already feel it. The mighty magic ahead." Luo Xingchen's eyes are locked in front of him. That is the outskirts of town. Chapter 85. Whole Body Acceptance. Beastmaster Elfman's sister. Elfman immediately ran to where Mira Jane fell. He helped Mira Jane, who was covered in scars, to his feet. Mira Jane covered her stomach because of the heavy blow from the Beastmaster just now. At this moment, the abdomen was dripping with blood. Intense pain continued to erode Mira Jane's nerves. Looking at Elfman beside him, at this moment, she seemed to be starting to regret it. Regret taking Lisana and Elfman on such a dangerous mission. "I also regret that I was careless in the battle." He clearly knew that this was an S-class mission. It is full of many unknown dangers, but he still relaxes his vigilance. Mira Jane murmured in excruciating pain, "Run away! Roar!" The Beastmaster roared again. At this moment, the Beastmaster's body was also covered with large and small scars. There are many burn marks all over his body. However, due to the larger body size, therefore, the body of the Beastmaster is much stronger than Mira Jane imagined. Therefore, it is still able to maintain the power of action. Scarlet eyes glared at Mira Jane ahead. The Beastmaster rushed up again. Damn it, even though the wound continued to hurt. But Mira Jane knew, now, 657 must protect his younger brother. He reached out and pushed Elfman aside. Mira Jane said loudly, "Run away. Go find Lisana and run away with her." 35 Elfman's rebuttal was then ignored. Mira Jane endured the severe pain in her body and greeted the Beastmaster. One man and one beast were once again caught up in the battle, although both sides are covered with scars. However, at this moment, even Satan can't receive Mira Jane. But there is no way to cause too much damage to the Beastmaster. And if the Beastmaster's blow is implemented, Mira Jane, whose injuries were close to the limit, was enough to completely destroy her body. At the moment, Mira Jane can only rely on the flexibility of her size. Resistible, but Mira Jane knew, if this situation continues, you will definitely lose. Roar, 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 dash. It seemed that he was angry with the person who was as slippery as a loach in front of him. The scarlet in the eyes of the Beastmaster became more and more dazzling. Even the speed of the huge punches began to speed up. The speed at which Mira Jane dodged was also made worse by the injury. Begin to get sluggish. Under this situation, the Beastmaster captured the moment when Mira Jane was slow. A fist bigger than the Mira Jane, CCBB, slammed down hard. Damn! Mira Jane clenched her teeth, clenched her right fist, and slammed it at the fist dropped by the Beastmaster. Just like before, two fists, one big and one small, slammed into each other again. But it is completely different from the previous results. Mira Jane screamed and was sent flying. But the Beastmaster was still standing there, motionless. Humanized excitement appeared on his hideous face. The Beastmaster intends to pursue the victory, thoroughly shred this long-lost human who seriously injured himself. That's it? Look at the huge body that keeps approaching. A flash of despair flashed across Mira Jane's face. The injuries on her body were not enough for Mira Jane to continue fighting. This is the first time Mira Jane has come this close to death. It is often said that when a person faces death, past experiences will come flooding back like a tidal wave. The same goes for Mira Jane. From birth to the accidental death of his parents, he was forced to take care of his younger siblings. And then to the church that opened her nightmare, and the boy who pulled himself out of the abyss and walked into the future. Scene after scene flashed. There is despair. After all, his future is about to end here. It's a pity. After all, I can't see that boy anymore. There's also a hint of happiness. After all, Elfman should have stayed away from here during the time he procrastinated. No, Elfman hasn't left yet. Mira Jane's eyes widened instantly, looking at the figure rushing towards the Beastmaster. Elfman has always been a timid brother. At this moment, he mustered up the courage to rush towards the Beast King. Elfman, don't. Run away. Mira Jane roared at her throat. As a man, how can you leave your family and run away alone? As a man, how can I just watch my sister fight alone? The always timid Elfman spoke with determination this time. My sister has always protected me, and Lee Sena, this time he stopped in front of the Beastmaster. He raised his head and looked directly into the scarlet eyes of the Beastmaster. The loudest voice in his life came out of his mouth. This time, let me protect my sister. Elfman charged at the Beastmaster. It seems that even the Beastmaster did not think of it. A human whose magic power itself is not strong. How dare you attack yourself? The next moment, Elfman hugged the Beastmaster's right foot. The muscles in his body began to soar, and Elfman raised his head. Blue veins are on the forehead, on the neck, on the arms. Riots started everywhere. Give me, take it. Elfman growled like a beast. Hum. The magic turned into light and began to shine over Elfman's body. Countless pixel blocks wrapped his body. It even began to spread to the Beastmaster. Roar, roar. The Beastmaster began to let out an uneasy roar. Immediately, it stretched out its claws, wanted to rip off Elfman, who was holding its legs. However, Elfman uses both hands and feet, climbing directly up the back of the Beastmaster's legs. He firmly grasped the bone, spurs extending from his back. The light on Elfman's body was even more dazzling. This is Mira Jane, who was not far away, was slightly stunned. Forcibly receive? Just like at the beginning, he forcibly accepted the devil Satan. Elfman is using this technique at the moment. And because the Beastmaster himself was traumatized in the battle with Mira Jane just now. Therefore, the resistance has become weak. Maybe it's really possible to do it. The Beastmaster's agitation was getting bigger and bigger. Even to force Elfman to give up, he didn't hesitate to hit the ground with his back. But Elfman remained unmoved, grabbing the bone spurs on the back of the Beastmaster tightly. Take over. The light began to grow brighter, until the entire body of the Beastmaster was wrapped up. In Mira Jane's surprised eyes, the huge body of the Beastmaster wrapped in light turned into countless pixel blocks, flowing towards Elfman's body. Did it work? Mira Jane covered her arms and stared at everything in front of her. Roar! But it was Elfman's roar that answered her. The voice was mixed with rage, as if to vent. It's like a beast that has been reborn. Wrapped in countless pixel blocks, his body began to swell. His short silver hair grew longer, and reddish-brown fur wrapped around his body. 2 long horns grew out of his forehead, and bone spurs protruded from the shoulders of his arms. The originally clear eyes were completely covered by scarlet. Fumin. Chapter 86, the final chapter of the battle. Luo Xingchen versus Beastmaster Elfman ignored his sister's cry. The scarlet eyes seemed to have no emotion. Although the huge body is hunched, but it still reached a height of about 2 floors. The Beastmaster Elfman slowly let out a low humming sound, but it contained unimaginable rage. At this moment, Mira Jane completely understood. The huge figure in front of him is no longer his own younger brother, but with the help of Elfman's body to restore the heyday of the Beastmaster. The Beastmaster began to move towards Mira J, despite changing bodies, but it seems to still remember this human being who has caused great trauma to itself. Elfman, even though he knew that it was the Beastmaster who ruled that body now, but Mira Jane always had a glimmer of hope, hoping to awaken Elfman's consciousness. Elfman, cheer me up. 35 Mira Jane, who covered her arms, shouted again. But the Beastmaster was still unheard of. Continued to approach Mira Jane. The sharp claws even flashed cold light in an attempt to completely tear the person in front of him. Miss Mila, Lysana's cry, came from above. The big blue bird fluttered its wings over the walking Beastmaster. Falling on Mira Jane's side, the light flashed, and Lysana's figure appeared beside Mira Jane. I have assisted all residents to evacuate. What happened here? 99 Lysana stopped in front of the injured Mira Jane. The vigilant gaze stared at the approaching Beastmaster and asked, "Run away, Lysana." Mira Jane said anxiously, "It's all my fault. In order to protect me, Elfman used the magic he received all over his body to deal with this Beastmaster." Lysana was stunned for a moment, looking at the Beastmaster with incredible eyes. "Says so. It's Brother Elfman?" Mira Jane nodded solemnly. However, because that guy's magic power is too strong, it completely occupied Elfman's consciousness. Now Elfman has lost his mind. How could this be? Lysana covered her mouth. What will happen to Brother Elfman? Mira Jane was silent for a moment, then spoke slowly. This is the disadvantage of receiving magic. If it can't be made clear to him, it is very likely that Elfman will be accepted by the Beastmaster. Having said this, Mira Jane bowed her head in remorse. However, Lysana next to him moved. She took light steps, just like his brother who is usually close to him. Without any precautions, he came to the Beastmaster. "Lysana, what do you want to do?" "Come back." Mira Jane struggled to stand up and shouted to Lysana, who walked up to the Beastmaster. "It's okay. He's Elfman's brother." Lysana turned her head and whispered to Mira Jane. With her hands behind her back, Lysana looked up at the Beastmaster. "Elfman brother, what's wrong with you?" "I'm Sister Lysana." She pointed to herself. He pointed to Mira Jane behind him. Still the same gentle voice as before, said, "Don't you remember that she is Sister Mila?" Roar. The Beastmaster was still whispering. However, it seems that because of doubts, his head turned slightly to the side. But those scarlet eyes were still full of tyranny. Watching this scene, Lysana's eyes flashed with an imperceptible sadness. But it was soon covered up by her smile. She believed that her brother would remember this smile. Because every time brothers and sisters go out to work, when you come back safely, you will always smile to welcome their return. It is also proof of the family. I'm sure Brother Elfman will never forget us, right? Lysana spoke softly. The Beastmaster narrowed his eyes slightly, his brows furrowed. Even the forward movement gradually stopped. Because Lysana and Mira Jane and Brother Elfman have always been family. Do you remember? 99, it seemed that the consciousness that was suppressed in the body began to resist again. The Beastmaster let out a mad roar, forcibly suppressed the consciousness in the body. The originally calm eyes were once again replaced by madness. A ferocious expression climbed up its face. He slowly raised his huge right arm. "Come on, let's go home together, Brother Elfman." With open arms, Lysana, with a warm smile on her face, whispered to her brother. "Lysana, run." Mira Jane cried out hysterically from behind. Tears began to ooze out of the corners of his eyes. Looking at the huge arms raised high, Mira Jane seemed to have foreseen what was about to happen in the next moment. She started struggling to get up from the ground. "I want to go forward and use my body to help my sister block this blow." But the feeling of weakness in her feet made Mira Jane fall to the ground again. "Don't! Get out of the way, Lysana!" "Who? Oh. With a roar, the Beastmaster's raised right hand went straight to the small human below and waved it down. Boom! The huge force exploded directly. The terrifying impact even caused cracks to appear on the ground. Splashes of smoke mixed with stones. In an instant, the location of Lysana and the Beastmaster was shrouded. "Lysana!" Mira Jane's face was cracked, and her outstretched hand seemed to grasp something. Who? The roar of the Beastmaster came from the smoke. With doubt, with anger, with hysteria. Lysana, who raised her arm to stop in front of her, didn't feel the pain coming. He opened his eyes, which were tightly closed because of fear. Lysana's eyes widened instantly. Flying before her eyes was the hem of the windbreaker blown by the raging wind. Looking forward carefully, the black-haired boy was standing in front of her. Under the boy's feet was a broken ground like a cobweb. The boy's right hand is straight up. He blocked the Beast King's fist that was bigger than the boy's entire body. Who? The Beastmaster let out a low cry of anger. The clenched fist is constantly exerting force, trying to press down. But the boy's body is still straight. Stars! Looking at the figure, Mira Jane exclaimed, "Brother Xingchen." Lysana raised a smile. The dangling heart gradually calmed down. I don't know when it started. Luo Xingchen's figure has been raised to a new height in the hearts of everyone in fairy tale. As if as long as he was there is no difficulty that cannot be overcome. The fist of the Beastmaster was tightly clasped by Luo Xingchen and pulled forward. Immediately, the huge body of the Beastmaster staggered, falling forward. At the same time, Luo Xingchen kept moving. The right leg is pulled back slightly to provide more space for the kick, aiming at the belly of the Beastmaster, who fell forward. Kick straight away. Boom! The dull sound carried the rolling air waves to the center of the belly of the Beastmaster. Spread out around. The huge power that rushed in an instant made the entire body of the Beastmaster show a bow-shaped bending. His eyes bulged sharply, his mouth wide open. The huge body of nearly 5 meters slid through the air like a cannonball, blazing towards the rear. Then he slammed into the small hill behind him. Retracting his raised right leg, Luo Xingchen turned to look at Lysana behind him. Brother Xingchen, Brother Elfman, I understand. Elfman has to regain consciousness, right? I'll leave it to me. Luo Xingchen said softly, looking at Urza, who hurried to the side, and Gray, who carried Natsu. Mila and Lysana, please take care of them and take them away. 35 Urza nodded and said succinctly, be careful. Seeing this, the words that Gray originally wanted to fight were also blocked in his throat. Finally nodding angrily, carrying Natsu, who has been unconscious until now, on his shoulders, went to the edge with Urza and Lysana and sat down beside Mira Jane. His eyes were fixed on the broken hills ahead. The next moment, the roar of the Beastmaster rang out. The anger that had accumulated in his heart exploded at this moment. Luo Xingchen narrowed his eyes. Elfman, it seems that I have to forcefully knock you out. B. Chapter 87. Shall we just watch it like this? Mira, are you all right? Urza came to Mira Jane's side, looked up and down, and asked. Mira Jane shook her head slightly. This injury is not dead. However, I didn't expect you to be beaten like this. Urza put Mira Jane's arm on his shoulder. While supporting her towards the edge, a mocking sound came out of his mouth. What? It's just a little careless. Otherwise, how could the Beastmaster beat me? 5 Mira Jane pouted in disdain. But what I saw was not the case. Urza responded earnestly. Mira Jane, 66, 99, it's really less verbose. Armor Girl, 35, I'm helping you. Didn't I even say thank you? Skinny Girl? Cut, it's annoying. How dishonest you are, Mira. Looking at the two people in front of them, constantly bickering. Lysana sighed silently. Really, are they still going to quarrel? Well, just get used to it. Gray didn't care. By the way, what happened to Natsu? Lysana looked at the 660 shadow who was carrying Gray's shoulders, doubt aloud. He, clamoring to keep up, originally thought to help, who knows. Saying that, Gray turned to Natsu, with a look of disdain. Who knew this guy would be so poor? This is Natsu, right? Lysana sneered. Then he seemed to think of something again, and continued to ask, however, why are you here? In this case, it can only be because the intuition of the stars is accurate. Urza in front answered the question aloud. Brother Xingchen? Lysana turned her head to look at the figure behind her. Well, Xingchen also performed the same task before, knowing the dangers involved, so he planned to take a look out of fear, but I didn't expect that something really happened. 35 Gray responded. It seems that Brother Xingchen has been worrying about us. Perhaps the crisis has been lifted, or it may be the afterlife. At this moment, Lysana's face raised a sincere smile. Even Mira, who was supported by Urza in front of her, blushed slightly. I left Luo Xingchen at the back, whispered softly, is worry. Several people came to the edge and found a flat ground to sit on the ground. Urza took out a few bottles of water from his backpack and handed them to a few people. After the battle, just now, let's add water. Huh? Lysana stiffly took the water bottle Urza handed over. The face was a little embarrassed. We're like this? Okay. Don't worry. If Xingchen makes a move, we usually don't have anything to do with us. We just need to watch it quietly and wait for the result. 39 Mira Jane said nonchalantly. As members of the same squad, Mira Jane naturally knew how strong Luo Xingchen was. Therefore, despite facing the Beastmaster, but Mira Jane has no worries. The line of sight was placed in the center of the battlefield. At this moment, on the broken hill, the huge body broke free from the boulders and clods that were pressing on it. Revealed, the chaotic magic power is constantly wandering around the Beastmaster. Although it has just been hit hard, but the scarlet in the eyes of the Beastmaster did not weaken in the slightest. There are even signs of aggravation. Roar, roar, roar. The Beastmaster let out a low voice that seemed to suppress his anger. The humans standing in front of it brought it a sense of crisis. Deadly sense of crisis. No creature can remain calm in the face of life-threatening threats. Therefore, the Beastmaster was even more angry. Lower your body and place your hands on the ground. The muscles of the whole body began to bulge continuously. The limbs that landed on the ground also showed a great curvature. Like a drawn bow, it's charging. Roar! With a deafening roar, the Beastmaster's limbs directly smashed the ground. The whole body jumped out violently. The strong starting speed brought countless smoke and dust in place. At this moment, the Beastmaster is like a reptile, and his limbs are advancing alternately in a frantic manner. Every step in the running process is accompanied by a huge sound of breaking wind. Point directly at Luo Xingchen on the opposite side. At this moment, Luo Xingchen was not flustered at all. Its figure was reflected in the eyes staring at the Beastmaster. On the open palm, the golden badge is shining. With a flick of his finger, the badge was thrown into the sky by him. The next moment, a magic circle engraved with thunder and lightning unfolded above him. Light bathed Luo Xingchen's body. The hair also began to render a faint blue, and the corners of the eyes began to grow scales. Yolei's Dragon Slayer badge. In order to awaken Elfman's consciousness, he must defeat the consciousness of the Beastmaster. Therefore, the thunderbolt with the effect of exorcising evil spirits. It will be more practical than other Luo Xingchen badges. Bang won the wind pressure from the Beastmaster's march blew up Luo Xingchen's clothes and the bangs in front of his forehead. Having come to Luo Xingchen, it raised its huge claws without hesitation. Shot at Luo Xingchen. The huge claws seemed to tear Luo Xingchen apart completely. The shadow, when he pressed down, covered Luo Xingchen's entire body. Yeah, the thunder and lightning were making a sound, and Luo Xingchen's body turned into a blue lightning. With extremely fast speed, he dodged to the side. The power of the giant claw is beyond reproach. At the moment its sharp claws landed on the ground trembled violently. Without a hit, it seemed to want to retract its claws. But the thunder and lightning wrapped Luo Xingchen broke out again. He slashed straight into the Beastmaster's claws. Boom! The violent roar brought an indescribable numbness. So much so that the Beastmaster instinctively opened his mouth and let out a roar. Luo Xingchen, who landed on the arm of the Beastmaster, immediately stepped forward. With the help of the Beastmaster's arm, he ran up. Immediately afterwards, he came to the shoulder of the Beastmaster, with thunder and lightning wrapped around his right foot, until the Beastmaster's cheek kicked away. Boom! With the sound of thunder and lightning, the entire body of the Beastmaster took off directly to the side. The eyes full of tyranny appeared sluggish for a moment. A crystal-clear object was sprayed from the grown mouth, floating in the air. Luo Xingchen took advantage of the opportunity to turn around in the air and landed perfectly first. Looking at the Beastmaster in midair, he raised his arm. The open 5 fingers clenched instantly. Next moment, the azure blue thunder and lightning descended from the sky, like an angry god descending punishment. It slammed straight on the Beast King's body. Roar! The Beastmaster let out a scream of pain. The entire body stiffened under the action of lightning. Even his eyes began to clear up a little. Then he fell straight to the ground. It took a long time to stand up, shaking his head, a little confused. The magic within the Beastmaster rose again, although the body is still stiff until now. But it still waved its fist at Luo Xingchen. But this slow speed is like a snail. Just by turning slightly sideways, he avoided the fist of the Beastmaster. The huge fist fell on Luo Xingchen's side, aroused countless gravel flying into the sky. However, this did not cause any change in Luo Xingchen's expression. The probing hand grabbed the sharp horn on the top of the head of the Beastmaster, who was crawling on the ground while waving his fist. Luo Xingchen abruptly lifted his knees, wrapped in lightning. "You Thunder Dragons, knee strike!" Boom, one dash. The knee strike directly hit the Beastmaster's jawbone. The whole head lifted uncontrollably. Paralyzed sensations flooded its brain. The huge impact of the knee strike made it cough up blood. The Beastmaster flew straight out. It smashed on the mountain not far away, causing a burst of turmoil. He looked directly at the Beastmaster embedded in the mountain. Luo Xingchen stepped forward and walked towards the Beastmaster. Ho! If the previous Beastmaster's roar was furious, then the roar of 1.1 now reveals a powerlessness. Huge fists shrugged weakly on both sides. The Beastmaster staggered out of the mountain. Looking at the figure walking around in front of him, it seems to feel fear. It is unimaginable to be the king of the monster jungle. How could it be afraid of a human? The footsteps took 2 steps back unconsciously, but there was a mountain behind him. That is to say, it has no way out. Roar! The Beastmaster, who noticed this, roared again, as if emboldening himself. It raised its fists, stacked them together, and smashed towards Luo Xingchen. This is all it can do so far, but it's a pity. Luo Xingchen stopped abruptly. The fist fell in front of his eyes, smashing the ground. He slowly raised his right fist. The azure blue lightning began to gather crazily above. The magic circle unfolded, and the ferocious dragon head came to life in the center of the magic circle. Yu Leilong's collapsed fist. Chapter 88. A successful conclusion and a safe return accompanied by roaring thunder. The Beastmaster completely lost all resistance and slowly fell to the ground. The huge body stirred up the diffuse smoke. The light flickered at the same time. In the package of light, the body of the Beastmaster began to shrink gradually, until it returned to the size of a normal person, and then the light faded. A charred elfman was revealed, and even his hair was curly. At this moment, his eyes were tightly closed. It seemed to be in a deep sleep. Check it out a bit. It was determined that the consciousness of the Beastmaster had been almost completely destroyed by his own thunder. Luo Xingchen was relieved. After all, in this case, it will be relatively easy for elfmen to control the power of the Beastmaster in the future, although it will not have the strength of the Beastmaster itself. But the victory is stability. Moreover, in a later stage, elfmen can also reach the level of the Beastmaster through his own cultivation. Luo Xingchen's turbulent magic power gradually subsided. It turned into a golden emblem and appeared in his hand. Put the badge away, Luo Xingchen picked up Elfman and walked towards Mirajane's people. By the way, Brother Xingchen, Brother Elfman, are you okay? Looking at Elfman, who has fallen into a coma, both Lisana and Mirajane had concerns on their faces. Don't worry, it's just a short coma now, and you'll wake up at 22 later, Luo Xingchen replied. After hearing that, Mirajane and Lisana felt relieved. Xingchen, thank you this time. After everything was over, Mirajane clutched at the hem of her leather jacket tangled, hesitantly said such words. Maybe for her, thank you or something, it's really hard to say. Luo Xingchen in front of him smiled slightly. reaching out and touching the girl's silver-white hair. I don't need to say thank you. Oh, and Xingchen, don't you need to say thank you? 35 aside, Lisana, who was watching the movement of the two, covered her mouth. The tone was sarcastic. And also touching Mila's head so intimately, could it be that? Have a leg immediately. Urza's look at Mira Jane started to look bad. In this regard, Mira Jane is no longer as shy as before. Without showing weakness, they met Urza's eyes. For a time, the smell of gunpowder was full. If it wasn't for Mira Jane's wounds now, I'm afraid the two have already started a fight. For the silent war, the two only saw. Luo Xingchen didn't pay attention or just got used to it. Anyway, the two of them would always fight each other inexplicably. Looking at Lisana, who covered her mouth and snickered, Luo Xingchen sighed and said, "Are you a tongue roll with happy?" 55, squinting slightly, and, speaking of rubbing your head, saying that, Luo Xingchen's other big hand directly covered Lisana's short silver-white hair and rubbed desperately. The originally supple silver-white hair suddenly turned into a chicken coop. "Didn't I rub your head, kid?" "Well, Brother Xingchen, I was wrong. Don't rub my hair." Lisana yelled complainingly. Remember, don't follow happy to learn anything like tongue rolling. Luo Xingchen smiled and let go. "I know." Lisana was full of resentment, reaching out to straighten his hair. As if thinking of something, he shouted again. "Also, I'm not a kid. I'm 15. Isn't 15 years old still a child?" Luo Xingchen retorted. Immediately, Lisana was speechless. Humph. In the end, it could only be turned into a cold hum. He turned his head away. The time is approaching evening. After helping the wizards in the town to completely expel the monsters, everyone also came to the outskirts of the town, ready to leave here. "It's finally over," Lisana murmured as she watched the devastated town. Because the monsters were all expelled. Therefore, people who had left the town to seek refuge also began to return to the town one after another. Although their homes have been destroyed in disgrace. But it was a home after all, and even if it was in tatters, it was the home of these residents. Besides, as long as there are people, then the broken city will one day be restored to its original appearance. At least, this group of simple residents think so. Although it's only a short day, it always feels like a long time. Perhaps it was a crisis between life and death. Lisana always felt some inexplicable emotions. Mira Jane came behind Lisana, touched her silver short hair. "Come on, we're going home." "Well, I'm home." Lisana looked at her sister, a smile on the corner of her mouth. The two of them came to the side of the magic four-wheeled vehicle parked not far away. At this moment, Urza touched his chin with one hand. Looking around, he said suspiciously, "Now, we have 7 people. How to go back?" "Indeed, this is a problem." Luo Xingchen's eyes turned to gray. Suddenly, Gray felt a chill down his spine inexplicably. "Hey, you're not going to go back with these 2 guys, are you?" He pointed to the 2 people lying behind him, with disbelief in his tone. "One is Elfman, who has fallen into a coma. One left is Natsu with a bulging mouth and a pale face." Yes, within 2 hours of Luo Xingchen and others arriving here. Natsu has not returned to normal. Although Natsu gets motion sickness, he usually leaves the vehicle. It takes about 10 minutes to recover at most, and it will be alive again. But this time, thanks to the reason that Luo Xingchen was in a hurry, the speed soared to nearly 300 kilometers per hour. As a result, Natsu's motion sickness reached an unprecedented level. Until now, the dizziness in the brain has not recovered. "Don't worry. How could it be possible for you to walk back?" Luo Xingchen shook his head. Then he pointed to the top of the roof. "You sit on it." 35, it's quite spacious up there. "What?" Gray's eyes widened. "Why don't you tell me to walk back? Because of your character, shouldn't we just be thrown out?" Gray's head shook like a rattle. Repeatedly refused. I agree with Gray's proposal." Behind him, Natsu raised his hand with difficulty. "Don't worry, I won't be racing this time." Luo Xingchen smiled comfortingly. "Also, I have ropes here that you can tie to the roof of the car." Urza took out sturdy ropes from the dressing room. He looked very serious. This is the rope Urza usually uses to tie his luggage in case of emergency. However, fortunately this time was urgent, Urza did not come with her luggage. Okay, then Elfman will take care of you. Mira Jane lined Gray's shoulders. The first to get into the car, Urza hands Gray the rope, eyes encouraging, then got into the car. Lysana came to the group and glanced at Gray, Natsu, and Elfman. Then he clenched his fist tightly. Come on. Then followed Urza and got into the car. Seeing this, Luo Xingchen, who was clasping his hands, spread his hands. Come on, we have to rush back to the guild. He patted Gray on the shoulder. Luo Xingchen also stepped into the driver's seat. There was only Gray standing alone, and two figures lying on the ground who needed his care. With a sigh, Gray still chose to accept his fate. Otherwise, maybe you really have to walk back. Put Natsu and Elfman on the roof. And after the two people, including himself, were firmly tied with ropes, Gray had both hands on the roof handles on either side. He took a deep breath and shouted, Xingchen, I'm ready. Luo Xingchen in the car nodded slightly. Start the magic four-wheeled vehicle and put the SE plug on his hand. Then, one foot on the gas pedal to the bottom, the magic four-wheeler roared violently. Gray, who was sitting on the roof of the car, shrank his pupils. The surrounding scenery began to regress wildly. The whole person also leaned directly towards the rear. But fortunately, there was a rope firmly tied to stabilize the figure. Again, come again, help. Natsu, who was tied up with 5 flowers and couldn't move on the roof of the car, let out a wailing sound. BD Xingchen, slow down. Haha, I'm sorry, I'm used to starting. Chapter 89, The Holy Ten Mage. Fairy Tale. The closed door was kicked open. At the gate, Mira Jane kept kicking the door. Although her right hand was bound by bandages at the moment, it was only a mere bandage. How could it be possible to suppress Mira Jane's broken heart? Ignoring Makarov's angry shouts at the bar, Mira Jane took the first step across the gate. Immediately behind Mira Jane, Luo Xingchen and other 6 people entered the guild one after another. Of course, Natsu and Elfman were carried into the guild. Yo, when you came back, I thought you would not be able to come back until tomorrow at the earliest. What's wrong with Elfman and Natsu? Even Mira is bandaged. Are you all right? However, it's good to be able to come back. Xingchen went out in such a hurry. We thought something big happened. Yeah, it's good to be back. Come on, let's have a drink for the safe return of these little devils. 35? Oh. At the moment when everyone stepped into the guild, countless greetings filled with concern, and the joy for everyone's safe return filled his ears. Fairy Tale is one such guild. No matter who it is, as long as you are in this guild, then everyone is family. Between family and family, whether it is joy or worry, they will show it without reservation. Amid the crowd's welcome, Luo Xingchen and the others came to the guild bar. Welcome back, said Happy sitting at the bar, paw raised. Happy. Lysana hugged Happy immediately. I miss you so much. Well, Lysana, we can't breathe. In Lysana's arms, no, it should be Happy in his arms, pulling his neck hard and calling for help. President, this is your car. Luo Xingchen handed Makarov the keys to the magic quadricycle. Makarov took the key, suspiciously looked at Luo Xingchen in front of him. Speaking of which, you didn't do anything wrong this time, did you? Don't worry, when I came back, I drove relatively slowly. Luo Xingchen replied. Upon seeing this, Makarov nodded and said, however, I still want to know what happened to you. In this case, let me tell you. Mira Jane came up with a bandage on his right hand. Then, her narration begins. After a long time, after listening to Mira Jane's words, Makarov frowned and closed his eyes. After a moment of silence, open your eyes. Elfman, was it actually received in reverse? It's really dangerous. Looking at Luo Xingchen. Xingchen, this time, thanks to your vigilance. Otherwise, I can't even imagine the irreversible situation. However, what's up with Natsu? Aside, Macau, who was drinking with Makarov, pointed to Natsu lying on the ground. Inexplicable inquiry. This guy, originally under the banner of helping out, didn't even kill a monster. 35 Gray found a place to sit, resting his chin in one hand in a sarcastic tone. It was motion sickness the whole time. Listening to Gray's words, Macau couldn't help but smile. Looks like Natsu is really inferior to being afraid of transportation. Love, how useless. 35, happy, said while holding the fish Lisina gave him, nibbling while sitting on the bar. Well, I'm here. I won't take the car driven by Xingchen. It seems that he heard the ridicule of the people towards him. Natsu raised his hand tremblingly and said, "No, I'm not taking transportation anymore. You have said this many times, and the result is still the same." Urza corrected Natsu seriously. Makarov, who was sitting at the bar, smiled and shook his head. "Anyway, it's really nice to see you all returning safely." He picked up the wine glass beside him and stood above the bar. "Raise the glass above your head. As a parent, I can only pray for your safety in the guild. It's useless for me. But at least I can say, welcome home when you return safely." Old eyes stared at the children in front of him. Makarov raised a smile. "Welcome back to Fairy Tale." Immediately, everyone in the guild raised the wine glasses in their hands, according loudly, "Welcome back to Fairy Tale." 95. Then, in order for the stars to return safely, let's have a banquet. Makarov shouted again. Oh, 35 enthusiastic people shouted loudly. Hearing the word banquet, Natsu raised his hand tremblingly. "Give me the flame package. Love, we want fish. Lots and lots of fish. Then let's have a carnival after a long absence. Can you put on your clothes before talking about the carnival? Urza, let's compete. You're still sick, and you're still underage, Mira. Drinking? This kind of thing comes to me. Bring me a glass of milk." Looking at the noisy guild for a while, Luo Xingchen sat on the bar and smiled slightly. Joy is contagious. No matter how cold a person is in such an atmosphere, will also be assimilated. "Xingchen, there is something here that I think you still need to know." Makarov, who was drinking, put down the glass in his hand, as if thinking of something. Looked towards Luo Xingchen. "Huh, you said." Luo Xingchen turned his head and said, "It's about the holy 10 sorcerers." Makarov's tone became serious. After pondering for a while, he continued to speak. "Some time ago, there were 2 vacancies for the sorcerer of the holy 10. Therefore, it is necessary to select people to make up for it, and this matter has been distributed to the major guilds. If there are candidates with sufficient strength, they can apply." He took the milk from the waiter. Luo Xingchen said aloud, "Isn't the so-called holy 10 chosen by the old men themselves?" Makarov nodded. "Although it is assessed by the council, the vision of the council is limited, and the sorcerer of the holy 10 is the carved face of the entire continent. So the demon, kings, law council will give priority to the powerful candidates of each guild. And in our guild, Guild Arts has no interest in these things. Laxus is too young and energetic, and Mira and Urza are somewhat lacking. 35, so I've been thinking about it, and it's only you." Makarov's eyes stared at Luo Xingchen's. "How about it? Do you want to try it?" Facing Makarov's gaze, Luo Xingchen smiled. Said, "Forget it. Saint 10 has a lot of things to bear, and I don't want to put shackles on myself." Makarov nodded and drank the wine from the glass. Then he said, "In short, I will not interfere with any of your decisions. Indeed, at your age, it is too cruel to shoulder the responsibilities of the magic world." "Any plans recently?" Makarov asked again. "What else can be planned but to carry out the mission?" And then Luo Xingchen stared at the constantly shaking milk in his hand and said softly, "Enjoy life." Chapter 90x 784. My name is Lucy X 784. 2 years passed quietly. During these 2 years, except for Luo Xingchen and Laxus, who have already become famous but have gradually lowered their profile, the younger generation in Fairy Tale also began to show their prominence gradually. Urza, the Queen of Fairies, and Mira Jane, the Devil. Fire Dragon Natsu, Ice Wizard Gray. There's also a mysterious Mystigan, who has never seen his true face, but possesses great strength. It is worth mentioning that Mystigan also passed the test 2 years ago and became an S-rank mage. The names of these people also began to spread throughout the continent, so that in the eyes of outsiders, Fairy Tale has gradually grown into one of the two most powerful guilds in the entire Fiori Kingdom. The Kingdom of Fiori, the Port of Harjan. As the largest port town in the Kingdom of Fiori, it has also gradually changed from a town that relied on fishing for a living. It has evolved into the largest trade exchange market in the Kingdom of Fiori. Therefore, there is an endless stream of people coming and going here every day. And in the crowd, a 20-year-old youth with short black hair, wearing a long black trench coat, and a height of about 1.8 meters is walking slowly on the street where people come and go. R. Youth's name. The noisy crowd around didn't seem to affect Luo Xingchen in the slightest. As he walked slowly, he was holding something called a communication magic crystal. At this moment, two silver-haired girls were displayed on the magic crystal screen. Mira Jane Strauss and Lee Sana Strauss. By the way, has Brother Xingchen's mission completed? Lee Sana asked aloud while wiping the cup. In the past 2 years, because I don't like fighting and the like. Therefore, Lee Sana applied to be the Kanban girl of Fairy Tale. And Mira Jane and Urza are also in these 2 years. Start a solo mission. However, the three were still a team. After the last Elfman incident, Mira Jane deeply felt that she was still too immature. If you always team up with Luo Xingchen, then you'll never grow up. As such, Mira Jane also occasionally performs tasks alone. In this regard, Urza is not to be outdone. According to her words, since Mira Jane chose to practice alone, then you can't fall down. As a result, Urza also started the mode of receiving tasks alone, unless there is something very tricky. Otherwise, it will be difficult for the three to get together. However, this mode is also very useful, be it Urza or Mira Jane. Both have come a long way. Although the process is a bit tortuous, it is still a complete success. Luo Xingchen answered Lisana's question. Twisted? I heard that. You have frozen the Donalan Mountains? Mira Jane, next to Lisana, raised an excited smile. She leaned forward. The cheeks take up the entire screen of the magic crystal. That's the tropics, and you made a mountain that hasn't melted until now, and it's yours. Sister Mila, this kind of thing is not worth getting excited about. Lisana behind her reluctantly complained. As for the mission, I won't mention this. Luo Xingchen shook his head. After all, it's not a glorious thing. The frozen peaks have affected the economic development there to a certain extent. Maybe the complaint letters have already been sent to Makarov. No, it should be said that Makarov is probably already writing a review. However, there is no way. Who is Makarov as the president? Brother Xingchen should have arrived at the port of Harjan now, right? Lisana looked at the screen, the endless crowd behind Luo Xingchen. Ask out loud. Well, probably. I won't go back until tomorrow, and Harjan Port is still worth a visit. Well, then don't forget to buy a gift. Don't worry, I brought some specialties from the mission location. That's good. Brother Xingchen, pay attention to safety. Lisana's voice just fell. Mira Jane, as if thinking of something, said, By the way, Natsu and Happy seem to be in Harjan too. What are they doing here? Luo Xingchen wondered. Those two idiots heard a little news that fire dragons appeared in that city. 39. Although I agree with their insistence, I'm very curious. How could they think that the dragon would appear in the town with a swagger? That's why they are called idiots. After the communication ended, Luo Xingchen put away the magic crystal. There seemed to be some kind of commotion up ahead. Slightly sideways, it was found that a group of young girls were surrounded by a greasy man. Seems to be glowing nympho. Shaking his head, Luo Xingchen ignored it. Then quickened the pace, walked toward the snack street ahead. Fire, CCBB Dragon Sama. 35, very handsome. Look at me here. The crowd burst into cheers, although Luo Xingchen didn't care. But there was a certain Sakura-haired boy who was also in town, and the blue cat was attracted by the cheers of the crowd. Are they talking about fire dragons? Natsu said to the blue cat beside him as he ran. Love is a fire dragon. Maybe Igneel. Happy also moved his short legs. Go forward. Igneel. With a strong physique, Natsu pushed aside the rabid crowd. He shouted at the figure surrounded by the center. However, after seeing the middle-aged, greasy man in the center, Natsu's excited expression quickly cooled down. Then it turned into doubt. Who are you? The middle-aged, greasy man's expression suddenly stiffened, but he quickly recovered. Greasy flipped his hair, and the middle-aged, greasy man said slowly, "I'm a fire dragon. You should have heard my name, right?" As he spoke, he looked at Natsu. A complacent expression. Cut. Natsu and Happy have no interest at all. Turn away. Hey, do you need to go so fast? Looking at one person and one cat who left without a response. The self-proclaimed fire dragon's expression is full of embarrassment. But the women around him were instantly angry. Without making any sense at all, he surrounded Natsu. Then came a beating. "You are so rude. That's Lord Fire Dragon, a very great sorcerer. Hurry up and kneel down and beg for mercy." 35? What the hell are you trying to do? Natsu was confused. "Forget it. Let's just let him go." 35 Fire Dragon shook his hair. The voice grabbed the girl's attention. "I don't think this guy is malicious." "Okay, Lord Fire Dragon." The girl stopped one after another, looking at the Fire Dragon with peach blossoms in his eyes. "Hey, young man." Fire Dragon walked up to Natsu and Happy. "I took out a whiteboard and a pen and began to write and draw. This is my autograph. Then go show it off to your friends." The Fire Dragon confidently handed his autograph to Natsu. "I don't want it." Natsu threw it away with no expression on his face. Suddenly, the angry girls broke out completely, throwing Natsu out too. The Fire Dragon looked at the sky, smiled slightly, and said, "Okay, I still need to go to the port ahead. Goodbye." 35. He snapped his fingers with one hand. The magic circle unfolded, and flames bloomed under his feet. "Then lift him up. Tonight, I will have a party on the boat. Everyone must come." The voice fell amid the cheers of the girls. The Fire Dragon rode the flames and left the place. Natsu sat on the ground and scratched his head in confusion. What's the matter with that guy? Love, not so clear. Happy was equally deceived. That guy is really a nasty guy. The blonde girl came to a man and a cat, reaching out and saying hello. "Thank you just now. My name is Lucy." Chapter 91 feels really cool inside a restaurant in Harjan. Lucy looked at the man and the cat who were gobbling down in front of him with cold sweat on his face. Next to it is a pile of dinner plates and tableware. Lucy swears, "I've never seen anyone who can eat like this." And cats. The waiter on the side was still bringing food. Even though every dish was served, Lucy was greeted with a smiley face. But God knows how much her heart hurts at this moment. Originally, I was going to thank one person and one cat for saving me from the charm magic cast by that annoying guy. I just invited this person and a cat to eat. Was wondering how much a meal would cost. Who knows, watching one cat and one man eating frantically, Lucy sighed. I took the initiative to find a topic and said, "You're called Natsu and Happy, right?" You're such a good person." Natsu kept stuffing things into his mouth, hesitant opening. "Well, I know you're very grateful, but don't worry, it said that food has flown here." Lucy silently took off the fishbone above his head and threw it into the trash can. By the way, the guy named Fire Dragons just now must have used a magic called Charm. Speaking of this, Lucy's face also became serious. It is said that that magic will attract people's hearts unconsciously, and it is obviously a magic that was banned from selling a long time ago. Shaking his head, Lucy looked disdainful. "I didn't expect someone to use this trick to attract girls. It's so bad." However, Lucy changed his attitude immediately. "Thanks to you for breaking in time, so that I can wake up. Thank you." "I see." Natsu chewed the food in his mouth, said vaguely. "However, don't look at me like this. I'm a wizard too." Lucy pointed to himself proudly. "Oh," Natsu replied perfunctorily, his hands constantly moving. "It's just that I haven't joined the guild yet." Seems to think of something. Lucy's expression became excited. "But let me tell you, although there are many guilds in the world, I have always wanted to join a guild." Her hands were clasped together, eyes filled with strong anticipation. That guild is very powerful, and it has gathered a lot of powerful mages. 99, it's an amazing guild. What to do? I seem to be joining. But it must be difficult to join that guild. Looking at the girl who kept twisting her body in front of her, her eyes glowing with light. Natsu and Happy looked at each other. Blinking his eyes, He continued to smother his head and cook. Seemingly noticing the emotions of the two, Lucy waved his hands again and again. I'm sorry, you must not know these things. After all, the world of mages is still too far from ordinary people. 5. Then he put his hands on his chin. Lucy seemed to fall into a fantasy, and after a while he said, however, I must find a way to join that guild. Absolutely. 99. Oh, come on then. Love? After one person and one cat responded perfunctorily, they continued to work hard. See, it's almost time. Lucy took out the meal money from the bag and put it on the dining table. Okay, it's almost time for me to go. You can enjoy it slowly. 55. When the words fell, Lucy got up and walked out of the restaurant. Thank you for your patronage, the waiter at the gate said politely. Was about to help Lucy open the door, but instantly froze in place. Huh. Lucy followed the waiter's gaze back suspiciously. His pupils shrank instantly. Thank you for your hospitality. In the aisle of the restaurant, Natsu threw himself to the ground under everyone's attention and said loudly, thank you so much. 35. Happy, the same action echoed loudly. Don't do this. It's a shame. Lucy couldn't take it any longer and roared loudly. Then he took a long sigh. Well, you don't have to thank me. After all, you also saved me, so it's an even balance. Natsu looked at Happy suspiciously. Did we save her? Who knows? Happy spread his hands. Right. Natsu flashed. He took the fire dragon's signature out of the bag and handed it to Lucy. This is for you. I don't want it, Lucy yelled. Lucy left here. Natsu and Happy are back in their seats again. Enjoy the food in front of you. That Lewis is really a good man. Natsu was enjoying the food. Love. Originally, because I had no money and hungry, the front chest was attached to the back. Happy holds a fish with a face full of approval. Suddenly, Happy looked outside the glass wall of the restaurant in confusion. What's wrong? Happy, Natsu asked. That looks like a star. 35. Happy pointed to the window, a black-haired figure walking past the glass while holding milk tea and skewers. Oh, really? Natsu Kazuki forcibly swallowed the food in his mouth and said to Happy, then let's hurry up and find Xingchen. Love, the stars will definitely invite us to eat a lot of precious fish. Happy is also very excited. Immediately, he picked up the whole fish that had not yet touched the chopsticks on the dining table and stuffed it into the package he was carrying with him. Opposite Natsu holding pig's trotters, while carrying a bag, I didn't forget to take 2 bites. Immediately afterwards, one person and one cat hurriedly chased out. Harjin Central Park. Lucy sat alone on the bench. In his hand is a magazine called Magic Weekly. It is a magazine devoted to all matters in the magical world. At the same time, because of its authority, it has been recognized by countless mages. Alala, why did Fairy Tale get into trouble again? Lucy looked seriously at the content of Fairy Tale. Although the Devon thieves were wiped out, they also destroyed 7 houses. It's too much to do. Lucy's face couldn't help but raise a smile. Turning the page again, Lucy's pupils shrank slightly. This is Fairy Tale sorceress Luo Xingchen, who froze a mountain for the crusade against the Dark Guild. 99. Hey, is this too exaggerated? Looking at the magazine, the photo of the brunette youth, Lucy couldn't help sighing. I really didn't expect that this issue of Magic Weekly published the news of the sorcerer. It's a big profit. In the past few years, there's been less and less news about him, and I don't know if he's going to retire or what. Having said this, Lucy quickly shook his head again. No, he's still so young. How could he retire? But it would be nice to join Fairy Tale. Sighed, but how on earth can I join Fairy Tale? Could it be an interview or something? He seemed to have thought of something. His cheeks turned slightly red. Lucy closed the magazine in his hand, and his smart eyes were full of yearning. The Sorcerer's Guild, Fairy Tale. It feels so cool. B. Chapter 92. I'm going to blast that ship. Really? Do you want to join Fairy Tale? Just when Lucy was full of anticipation, there was a noise in the grass behind the bench. Immediately afterwards, a voice that was both familiar and disgusting to Lucy emerged from the grass. I've been looking for you for a long time. Fire Dragon touched his chin. put on a self-confessed handsome face, winked at Lucy. Huh. Lucy was taken aback for a moment, then moved a little distance towards the bench, looking at the greasy middle-aged man in front of him in surprise. Yes, his fire dragon? The fire dragon walked out of the grass and raised his palm. Let the ring with the heart painted on it naturally aim at Lucy, because I want to host you on board to my party. The corners of Fire Dragon's mouth curled into a confident smile. Your charm has no effect on me. Lucy shook his head and stood up, looking directly at the Fire Dragon, and said sharply, the weakness of this kind of magic is understanding 663, which is ineffective for those who know the inside story. However, for Lucy to be able to see through his own magic. Fire Dragon was not surprised. Spreading his hands, he said, sure enough, I can see at a glance that you are a magician. But it doesn't matter, as long as you can come to my party. Lucy curled his lips in disdain and turned around. Don't even think about it. I'm not interested in parties organized by low-level men like you. Low level? 39 Lucy's words were like a sword in Fire Dragon's heart. Lucy turned around, said, is this magic of enchantment just for the crowd? Actually, that's just a prelude. I just want to enjoy the celebrity atmosphere at the party. Huolong explained, but Lucy didn't appreciate it. Spreading his hands, Lucy's tone was full of sarcasm. This is a well-known sorcerer. I see. It's simply an idiot. Do you have to be so direct? Huolong complained silently. But soon, the fire dragon cheered up, looking at Lucy. By the way, don't you want to join Fairy Tale? Lucy's body shook violently. Fire Dragon's smile brightened. The right hand gestured to the chin again. He thought he was handsome and blinked. I said, the Fire Dragon in the Fairy Tale Guild. Haven't you heard of it? Yes. Lucy's eyes widened, and his head kept nodding. Suddenly reacted, stretched out his hand, trembling slightly, and pointed to the Fire Dragon. Incredulously said, so you're the wizard of Fairy Tale. That's right. Fire Dragon tugged his hair. Continue. If you want to join, I can help you speak to the president. What'd-be Lucy's expression changed from sarcasm to disdain to excitement and flattery. With their hands clasped together, Lucy said wryly, I think tonight's party will be great, right? Watching Lucy's attitude change 180 degrees, the Fire Dragon silently shed a drop of cold sweat and complained, you're changing your face too fast. Lucy ignored Fire Dragon's rants. With her eyes twinkling, she asked excitedly, so, can you really let me join Fairy Tale? Of course, but you don't need to tell the charm of things. Fire Dragon nodded. Don't worry, my mouth is very strict. Lucy stood up straight, with a very solemn expression on his face. The Fire Dragon smiled, turned around, and the magic circle unfolded at his feet. Then we'll see you at the party. The next moment, the flames rose to his feet. Go straight into the distance with the Fire Dragon. Okay, I'll go. Lucy smiled excitedly. Shout out loud. Suddenly she seemed to react, looked at myself. I seem to be charmed, but I can finally join Fairy Tale. Excited to the extreme, Lucy didn't care whether he was charmed or not. Instead, he stood there, giggling constantly. Night, view stop above Harjan Harbor. It is less than 200 meters away from the sea. Therefore, it is also one of the best scenes to watch the magnificent sea. Ah, I'm so full. Natsu patted his bulging belly with a look of enjoyment. Love. Happy nodded in agreement, looking at Luo Xingchen, who was on the side. Fortunately, there are stars. Otherwise, you won't be able to enjoy Harjan's special food. Smiling slightly, Luo Xingchen rubbed the blue kitten's head. Said, since you like it, you will have the opportunity to come back in the future. By the way, Xingchen has been out this time for a long time. It's been a month. Is the task difficult? 35, seeming to think of something, Natsu asked aloud. Yeah. Luo Xingchen leaned against the railing, staring straight at the sea in the distance. Let the sea breeze keep blowing on his face. After all, it is a task defined as SS level, and it is difficult in itself. And this time the mission is still above the level of assessment, and it is almost comparable to the 10-year mission. 35 SS level missions. It is a super difficult task that has surpassed the S rank in an all-round way. On top of that, it is a 10-year mission. The 10-year mission, as the name implies, is that the mission has been issued for nearly 10 years. There is no task that anyone can accomplish, hence the name. A 10-year mission. Natsu looked at the figure in front of him in surprise. Is that dark guild so strong? Natsu knew that Luo Xingchen's mission was to crusade a guild outside the Balam Alliance established independently of the Dark World. Due to its secrecy, therefore, even the Dark World knows very little about it. Originally, Natsu wanted to go with him, but unfortunately, Luo Xingchen rejected him because he was too weak. In this regard, Natsu was still sullen for a long time at the time. The most troublesome thing for that guild is their guild leader, whose strength can almost match that of the Holy Ten. Speaking of this, Luo Xingchen shook his head. If it weren't for that guy's own strength, he was especially good at hiding. Therefore, it took nearly a month of time to get it done. Look, that's Lord Fire Dragon's ship. Fire Dragon? Don't you know, he's in this town right now, and he's having a party now. I heard that he is the super famous wizard of fairy tale. Just when a few people were blowing the sea breeze and chatting, the voices of the girls on the other side of the observation deck attracted the attention of Luo Xingchen and Natsu and Happy. Squinting slightly, Luo Xingchen said, Natsu, did you just hear 1.1? 99 Natsu nodded solemnly. They say, fairy tale. Is that the guy from today? Happy frowned. The greasy middle-aged man I met on the street today appeared in my mind. I don't remember that guy is from a guild. Natsu turned his eyes to the sea. That is to say, it's posing. Luo Xingchen said softly. Glancing away, looked at Natsu. Someone pretends to be our guild. What do you say? Boom. Natsu's fists exchanged, and the flames exploded instantly. Say aloud, what else can I do? Of course I beat that guy. 99, come on then. Luo Xingchen turned around. His eyes turned to the ship that was swimming on the sea. Happy, take me there. I'm going to blast that ship. Love. Chapter 89, a glimpse. Just like 6 years ago, Xingchen, you don't have to take action. I'm not who I was a month ago. I can do it alone. Natsu, who was dragged into the sky by Happy, did not forget to shout at Luo Xingchen. Forehead, listening to Natsu's words, Happy knew that Natsu was probably still upset that Luo Xingchen didn't take him on a mission a month ago. Although I would like to say, Natsu is actually not that different from a month ago. But Happy still didn't come out. Luo Xingchen on the viewing platform leaned on the railing with both hands. He looked at Natsu suspiciously. Then he said, well, it's not a very strong opponent anyway. 35, however, I still have to remind you. Very well, let's go Happy. Natsu obviously didn't listen to Luo Xingchen's words behind him. Immediately greeted Happy and hurried off. Love. Happy fluttered his wings and quickly approached the ships on the sea. Luo Xingchen, who was standing still, sighed, still as reckless as ever, though would love to remind Natsu that was fighting on a ship. Better to keep Happy dragging him. But looking at the confident back, Luo Xingchen estimates that Natsu should be very clear. Wandering on ships in the sea, Lucy, wearing a 22 red evening dress, is holding a fire dragon. What exactly do you mean? Lucy glared at the fire dragon at the moment. The magic you use now is the magic of sleep, right? Just now, Lucy originally thought that only after attending this party, I can successfully join my dream guild, Fairy Tale, but did not expect the person in front of him quietly released the sleeping magic. Fortunately, Lucy is a wizard himself. This kind of low-level magic can be seen at a glance. Therefore, such a scene appeared. But for Lucy to be able to see through his own magic, the fire dragon did not panic. He smiled. It seems that you know a lot. Don't get me wrong. I really want to join Fairy Tale, but that doesn't mean I want to be your woman. Lucy snapped at the middle-aged, greasy man in front of him. You are really difficult to deal with. Fire Dragon clapped his hands. The next moment, the curtain behind Lucy was pulled back. What caught my eye was a group of girls who fell into a coma. Welcome to my ship. You should be obedient before you arrive at Bosch. Little girl. The fire dragon raised his eyes and looked directly at Lucy. As if he had taken off the mask of hypocrisy, his eyes were full of fierceness. What? Meaning? Lucy's eyes widened. Involuntarily, he took 2 steps backward. Wait, what about fairy tale? Haha, don't be silly. You are our commodity from now on. Huolong laughed unabashedly. As expected of Lord Fire Dragon, this time is really a bumper harvest. A group of big men who followed behind the Fire Dragon echoed. At the same time, he took steps towards Lucy and surrounded him. Everything in front of him made Lucy, who had not yet been deeply involved in the world, a little scared. He looked at the girls who were laughing and fell into a coma. Lucy fell for the first time. My own dream, the dream that I have had since I was a child, seems to be beginning to shatter. What the hell is going on with this guy? She raised her head reluctantly. To actually do such a thing, do you say, is this the wizard of fairy tale? Lucy roared at the group. She gritted her teeth, her body trembling. Not only abusing magic, but also deceiving people. Tears leaked from his eyes and ran down his cheeks. This is the worst wizard ever. 99 with his right hand reaching his waist, Lucy was angry and prepared to fight back. However, Lucy's movements were interrupted by the sudden sound of breaking air from above. Immediately afterwards, the plank above Lucy shattered instantly. A boy with sakura hair falls from the sky. That's you. Impersonating fairy tale. 35 The roar of fury to the extreme spread in the narrow space of the ship. Natsu, looking at the person who came, Lucy's eyes gradually lit up with hope. But the next moment, damn, the boat is moving. Natsu puffed out his mouth instantly. His eyes were white, and fine sweat was oozing from his forehead. He fell straight to the ground. Lucy, Fire Dragon, 6699 crowd, 6,699, did you just find out now? The Happy, flying high in the sky, complained. Looking at Lucy on the side, Happy revealed doubts in his eyes. Lucy, what are you doing here? 35 Happy. I was cheated. They said they could let me join fairy tale, etc. Only then did Lucy notice that Happy was flying in the air. He couldn't help but wondered. By the way, how can you have wings? The details will be discussed later, but let's take you away first. Happy, he lowered his body and grabbed Lucy's back collar. Directly into the air, the stunned Fire Dragon finally reacted. Immediately, he shouted to the people behind him, "Hurry up! If you get accused in the Senate, you're done." Then he waved violently towards Happy, who was gradually moving away from the sky. "Don't try to run away. Watch me shoot you down." The magic circle unfolded, and immediately countless rope-like flames stretched out. "Go straight to the Happy above. Watch out, Lucy. I'm going to speed up." Happy, who was dragging Lucy, also noticed the flame whip chasing after him. Immediately increased the speed again. Dodge left and right to avoid Fire Dragon's attack. There are those girls and Natsu on that ship, so we have to go back and save them. Lucy looked at the cruise ship behind him and spoke anxiously. "Lucy, listen to me first." Happy was interrupted by Lucy before he could finish. "What are you talking about now?" Boom. The wings behind Happy disappeared into a cloud of smoke. "My transformation is released." Lucy's eyes widened instantly when the high number fell. "You stupid cat, love, puff, puff." Two falling water sounds sounded at the same time. Lucy struggled in the water for a moment before swimming to the surface. Afterwards, Happy, who was full of water, slowly floated up. "First, let's get the ship back." Lucy took out a golden key hanging from his waist. Then he touched the surface of the sea. "Open it." The door of Aquarius. Aquarius. Ding dong, with a sound like a doorbell. A blue magic circle spread out above the sea. Then the calm waters began to riot. Like a water tornado, it rose up in front of Lucy. Then, the blue-haired mermaid emerged from the waterspout. "Aquarius, use your might to push that ship back into port." In a surprised look of Happy, Lucy pointed to the shore of C-663 in high spirits. Cut. But the blue-haired mermaid doesn't seem to be too rude. She is. "Exactly. I've been wanting an event recently." Aquarius raised the treasure bottle in his hands. The violent magic surged out instantly, and then, Ola! Along with a roar, Aquarius held the aquarium in both hands and slammed it out. Immediately afterwards, it was a huge tsunami with a height of tens of meters. suddenly burst, not just the ships on the sea. The sudden tsunami swept the entire offshore directly. During the tsunami, Lucy was madly forced to turn in circles in the current. Why did you even rush away with me, Boom? The tsunami slapped directly on the port of Harjan. The huge impact directly sent Lucy flying high. Eh? Ah! Lucy's whole body kept flipping in midair. His eyes inadvertently glanced at the observation deck on the shore. His mouth opened slightly unconsciously, his eyes widened instantly, and even his pupils were constantly trembling. Right across from her, the black-haired youth is standing on the high platform. His hands resting on the railing seemed so casual. The strong wind from the tsunami blew the young man's black hair. His seemingly careless face was revealed. The flying windbreaker rattled behind the youth. At a certain moment, the eyes of the two collided in midair. Lucy's mind instantly returned to 6 years ago. That amazing glimpse inside the carriage. Can't go wrong. It's that, the boy who rides the ice. It was only a brief contact, and Lucy was instantly certain of this fact. The body began to fall uncontrollably. In Lucy's line of sight, the figure on the high platform began to grow farther and farther away. Chapter 94, What Are You Still Doing? Run with Us. The tsunami gradually subsided. The huge ship was also washed directly to the shore. Lucy, who was wearing a dress, fell to the ground and kept rolling. It took a while to barely stop. His eyes turned to the position of the black-clothed youth just now. However, due to the long distance, it was impossible to see the specific appearance of the young man. Only a faint black dot could be seen. But luckily it's still there. Shaking his head, he shook his wet blonde hair. Lucy intends to wait for the matter here to settle. Looking for the black-haired youth, he looked at the blue long-haired mermaid floating in front of him. Lucy yelled angrily, "What the hell are you thinking? Why did you even rush away with me?" The blue-haired mermaid holding the bottle gave Lucy a disdainful look. "Too much. I even rushed the boat over together. Your target has always been me?" Lucy collapsed and shouted. No apology at all. The blue-haired mermaid turned his head, and his body began to fade gradually. "Don't call me lately. I'm traveling for a week with my boyfriend. 99 with my boyfriend. Don't say it twice." The blue-haired mermaid disappeared completely. What a reckless guy. Lucy had blue veins on his forehead. Love behind him, his head sank into the sand, and Happy kept struggling. Finally got his head out. Said, "Lucy, your magic is really willful. Did you start complaining as soon as you got out?" Lucy helplessly raised his forehead. "By the way, what about that group of traffickers?" Thinking that the current predicament has not been lifted, Lucy instantly became vigilant. His eyes glanced around. Over there. Happy stretched out his paw and pointed in front of Lucy. The boat that washed up on the beach, one by one, the fierce people who covered their heads crawled out. And above this group of people, out of transportation, returning to normal, Natsu slowly stood up. "You just said you're a wizard from Fairy Tale, are you?" Natsu lowered his face, his tone extremely serious. "So what?" Fire Dragon frowned. As if feeling a little impatient, he moved towards his subordinates. He waved his hand and said, "You guys, hurry up and get rid of him." "Yes." Immediately, many big men began to gather around Natsu. "No, it's dangerous." Lucy immediately touched the key on his waist. "Don't worry, I forgot to tell you. Natsu is also a magician." 55 Happy looked calm, even took out the fish that was packed this afternoon, and nodded. "What?" Lucy was startled and looked at Natsu. At the moment, Natsu didn't care what the group was doing. Instead, "Take off your jacket." With a single punch, all the attacking people were repelled. The arm that took advantage of the trend revealed the crimson goblin coat of arms. "I'm Natsu from Fairy Tale. I've never heard of your character." "What?" Looking at the coat of arms, Fire Dragon's forehead suddenly oozes sweat. "Fairy Tale?" Natsu turned out to be the Wizard of Fairy Tale. Lucy yelled in surprise. Seems to think of something. Lucy hurriedly turned to look at the figure on the high observation deck. Yes, if Natsu is also the Wizard of Fairy Tale. That is to say, Natsu is with that person. That coat of arms. Mr. Porla, He really is. The muscular man on the side looked at the coat of arms on Natsu's right arm, shouted out in panic. Idiot. Don't call that name. Even pretending to be Fire Dragon's Porla all this time was a little flustered. Happy had a serious face, recalling information about Porla. Porla, originally known as Red Sky, was exiled by the Sorcerers Guild's Nose of Giants several years ago. Natsu clenched his fists tightly, and the veins burst out on his forehead. I don't care if you're a good guy or a bad guy. With that, he took a step towards Porla. No matter what, the last thing you should do is lie around under the name of Fairy Tale. 99, so what? Little devil. After the initial panic, Porla calmed down. He raised his arm and pointed at Natsu. Shut up. The flames were released from his hands. It hit Natsu's body directly, caused a small explosion. Hey, he'll be all right. Lucy looked at Happy. Don't worry, flames can't hurt Natsu. Happy vowed. Not far away. He looked at the figure shrouded in flames in front of him. Porla smiled disdainfully. He seemed to be laughing at Natsu's overreach. A guy who just talks and doesn't practice is useless at all. After saying that, Porla prepared to leave first with her little brother. It's unpalatable. Natsu's voice came through the flames. Porla was stunned and turned her head in disbelief. Looking behind, the blazing flames are shrinking at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the eyes of everyone surprised, the flame turns into a streamer. All were sucked into Natsu's belly. Are you really a wizard of fire? I've never eaten such unpalatable fire. Porla already felt that her worldview was collapsing. What? Lucy wasn't much better at the moment. The flames disappeared completely, and Natsu wiped his mouth. Although it was unpalatable, thank you for the hospitality. His fists clenched, and magic power began to pour out of Natsu's body. After eating it, the power began to surge up. Before putting his hands on his mouth, the magic began to circle continuously. At this moment, the person next to Porla seemed to recognize Natsu. Mr. Porla, I know him. Sakura-colored hair and a scaly scarf. This guy is a real fire dragon. 35, a magic circle appeared in front of Natsu. Fire dragons roar. With the sound of roar, flames spewed out. In just a moment, Natsu's breath covered Porla's men. Even ships were detonated by it. Only Porla escaped to the sky with her magic. Is this really magic? Lucy looked at everything in front of him in confusion. The dragon's lungs can blow out flames. The dragon's scales can dissolve the flames. And the dragon's claws can catch the flames. This is an ancient magic that transforms itself into a dragon's physique. It's also magic used to fight dragons. Dragon Slayer magic. Porla's hard blow was eaten by Natsu again. He smiled excitedly. Natsu ran fast, then jumped high. Fire dragon's flames enveloped Natsu's fist. Iron fist! Boom! Porla fell from the sky, completely destroying the ship. Dragon Slayer magic. But will this? Lucy was stunned for a moment before finally reacting, looking at the destroyed ships before them, and the flames that covered half the town of Harjan. It's going too far, she yelled in a broken voice. Above the observation deck, Luo Xingchen's expression did not change. Porla's defeat didn't come as a surprise to him. If so, Natsu can't even beat Porla. So what else is Dragon Slayer? Rebuild it. He turned his attention to the blonde girl below. Luo Xingchen murmured, Lucy? There seemed to be the sound of neat footsteps coming from behind. Luo Xingchen turned around. I saw a group of heavily armed people rushing towards this side. Really, every time I come when things are over. After silently complaining, Luo Xingchen supported the railing with one hand and exerted force with both feet. Jumped directly from the viewing platform. Squatting with both feet relieved the recoil of the landing. Luo Xingchen stood up. Walked towards the position of Natsu and the others ahead. By the way, it turns out that Natsu and Happy are both wizards of fairy tale. Lucy looked at the two in front of him with amazement in his eyes. However, she immediately responded, Wong Hao, and said, But why didn't you say it then? Natsu and Happy looked at each other, inexplicably asked, Have you ever asked? Lucy was stunned for a moment. It seemed that this was really the case. Shook his head. Lucy was about to ask about the black-haired youth. A sound came from behind. People from the army are here. If you don't want to be caught, you can quickly withdraw. Hearing the voice, Lucy turned back quickly as expected. A black-haired youth in a trench coat is walking towards this side. Lucy still remembers this young man's name firmly until now. Fairy tale, Luo Xingchen. Oops, hurry up and run, heard Luo Xingchen's words. Natsu suddenly panicked, immediately turned around, and planned to escape from this place of right and wrong. Love, happy, also spread its wings, ready to fly into the distance. He seemed to notice Lucy, who was still sluggish in place. Luo Xingchen stopped. What are you still doing? 99, didn't you say you want to come to our guild? Natsu's voice came from the front. Love, run with us. Happy raised a smile. It seems that I never thought that my dream would be so close to me. Lucy smiled too, as bright as a blooming flower. Chapter 95. Calm down and get used to it, Magnolia, Fairy Tale Guild. The closed door did not stop the noise from inside. On the contrary, it makes people look forward to what kind of scene is inside. Lucy held the suitcase in one hand. He raised his head and stared at the top of the guild building, the fairy flag fluttering in the wind. Here, it's fairy tale. There's excitement in Lucy's tone. Then he looked at Luo Xingchen behind him. Can I really join in? Don't worry. Fairy tale will not reject someone who truly loves this guild. Luo Xingchen, who was behind him, wrapped his arms around him and said, That's right. Anyway, let's follow. Natsu didn't look back. Go straight ahead. Facing the closed door, he slammed into it. I am back. We're back. Happy echoed in midair. Watching Natsu's movements, Lucy's face was full of confusion and confusion. Is this all right? Lucy asked Luo Xingchen next to him cautiously. If you get used to this, just get used to it. Luo Xingchen hesitated for a moment, patted her shoulder. Then he stepped inside. Natsu's actions caught everyone's attention. Yo, it's Natsu and the others, welcome back. Kana gestured with a glass of wine. Natsu 667, I heard that you have done a big thing, half-hearted. The boy named Toma hadn't finished speaking yet. He was met with Natsu's angry kick. One kick directly kicked it for several meters and shredded a series of seats and benches. Lucy's eyes widened instantly. What's the situation? Calm down and get used to it, Luo Xingchen said nonchalantly. UBD, the fire dragon's news is fake. Natsu roared aggressively. Bao Yanan immediately disapproved and stood up immediately. Not to be outdone, he responded, I know it's fake. I'm just telling you what I've heard. UBD, what are you talking about? Are you trying to fight? Boom! In an instant, Toma took off on the spot, knocking over countless people drinking. Natsu stayed where he was, still holding his fist, with satisfaction in his eyes. BD Natsu, I'm eating. Wakaba yelled angrily. Hey, destroy it as soon as you come back. UBD, 99 Valian stepped forward to stop it. Bang, one immediately followed by a punch. BD, it seems that you are out of control. Watch me beat you, CCBB. Bang, 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 bang. A battle ignited by Natsu ensues in an instant. Countless chairs and beer plates were flying around in the guild. Over time, more and more people were involved. Lucy on the side was a little overwhelmed by the current situation. However, he was forcibly suppressed by curiosity about fairy tale. Smart Big Eyes looked around. By her side, Gray, who was not wearing a shirt, stood up menacingly. I heard that Natsu is back. Let's strike today and settle the account. Saying that, Gray walked towards the fighting crowd with 8-figure steps. Is he a pervert? Lucy muttered silently. Gray, clothes. Sitting at the bar, Kana is elegantly tasting the red wine in her glass. Reminders without expression. Wow, when Gray looked panicked. Looking at Gray like this, Kana sighed silently. So, how come the men here are always poor? 35, he raised his head, his eyes full of melancholy. I guess the stars are better, right? No, that guy has a habit of drinking milk. It's really unbearable, said and shook his head. She turned around and picked up the wine barrel that was thicker than hers and poured it into her mouth. Lucy was stunned. Gray, who couldn't find clothes, simply ignored it. He kicked off the stool beside his feet and shouted at Natsu. "Hey, Natsu, let's have a showdown." Natsu knocked down a group of people with one punch and looked away with disdain. "Gray, you better get dressed first and come." It's gibberish in broad daylight. A white-haired strong man walks slowly behind Lucy. "Are you all still kids?" Elfman stepped forward. "If you're a man, express it with your fists." He came into the crowd and yelled. "Is it still going to be a fight?" Lucy already felt powerless to complain. Elfman, after the last runaway incident, gradually realized his weakness and determined to be strong and become a real man. This makes Mira Jane happy. After all, inexplicably, there is a free sandbag. Can she be unhappy? Noisy, Natsu and Gray, who were pinching each other, threw their fists together. Elfman died. It looks imposing, but it's really vulnerable. Lucy held his forehead. "That's enough. Can't you just be a beautiful man quietly?" A voice drew Lucy's eyes again. It was a handsome-looking man. There are eyes on the bridge of the nose, and there are several rings on the hand that hugs the girl. Isn't this the top Loki in the Mage Who Wants Him to Be Her Boyfriend the Most in Magic Weekly? Lucy, who has always followed Magic Weekly, recognized it immediately. Boom! The sole of the shoe that came from nowhere slammed into his face. Immediately aroused cordial greetings from the two girlfriends on the side. "Well, it looks like I'm going to join in as well." Loki pushed the soles of his face away. Standing up and looking at the two girlfriends with peach eyes, coquettishly smiled. "I'm fighting for you." "Come on, Loki," the two girls blushed. "Delete the ranking on the leaderboard." Lucy turned around expressionlessly. I took out a small notebook and a pen. A big cross was drawn on Loki's ranking. But compare it to Luo Xingchen's face on the side. Sure enough, it's still a lot worse, whether it's appearance or temperament. Lucy shook his head and sighed. "By the way, what's going on here? There are no half-normal people here." "Well, just get used to it." Luo Xingchen's words didn't change at all. His gaze turned to the white-haired figure walking towards him not far away. With a smile on his lips, he said, "Yo, Mira, long time no see." "Long time no see. Xingchen, it's been a month? Who is she?" 35 Mira Jane in a leather coat came over. First, I said hello to Luo Xingchen. Then he turned his attention to Lucy. After looking up and down for a while, I asked, "Magic Mira Jane." Lucy almost thought he had read it wrong. This person is often active in Magic Weekly. Of course, there's some negative reports. Lucy, however, saw the negative reports. Therefore, she is also a big fan of Mira Jane. I didn't wait for Luo Xingchen's introduction. Lucy hurriedly stretched out his palm. "My name is Lucy. I'm a newcomer. Please give me more advice." "Lucy," Mira Jane murmured. Then he raised his mouth and hooked Lucy's shoulder. "Rookie, just call me Mira and give me more advice in the future." Chapter 96, Worry-Free People. Thick complaint file. It seems to be because Mira Jane's strength is a little bit stronger, so that Lucy was a little uncomfortable. After struggling for a while, he broke away from Mira Jane's hospitality, rubbed his neck. She pointed to a group of people who were constantly fighting each other. "Speaking of which, do you really need to stop them?" Mira Jane waved her hand indifferently. "Don't worry, it's all the same. Don't worry about them." Speaking of this, Mira Jane's mouth slightly raised into a smile. He opened his mouth slowly. "Isn't this very happy?" 3-9 call out. Behind Mira Jane, a strong man with white hair flew over. This scene happened to be seen by Lucy. Her pupils shrank and her fingers pointed behind Mira Jane. Lucy's voice has not yet fallen. Mira Jane noticed the strangeness behind her. Turning around, he stretched out his palm towards the flying Elfman. Boom! Elfman's huge body was dropped directly by Mira Jane with one hand. Not only did he make my brother look like this, but he even wanted to attack me? 35 Mira Jane's smile just disappeared immediately. As if throwing out the trash, he threw Elfman aside. "Move the wrist. Looks like it's time to teach you some lessons today." The voice just fell. Mira Jane rushed towards the crowd excitedly. Watching the scene, Lucy twitched the corners of his mouth. Stiffly, he looked at Luo Xingchen, who was holding his arms around him, and said, "I see. She seems to be looking forward to participating in this fight. Well, it's good to get used to it." Luo Xingchen pondered for a while. He patted Lucy's shoulder solemnly and said, Then he walked towards the bar. I knew it. Looking at the back in front of him, Lucy helped his forehead helplessly, but it was quick to respond. Wait for me. Although he didn't know what he should do now. But in such a scuffle, it's safer to follow the only normal person in the guild, with this thought. Lucy followed Luo Xingchen to the bar. Brother Xingchen, welcome back. Li Sana, who was wiping her wine glass casually, raised a smile. Ah, I'm back. Please ask for a glass of milk. Luo Xingchen responded. Just had a drink. It's already ready. Li Sana bent over, took a cup of hot milk from the bar, and handed it to Luo Xingchen. Then Li Sana looked at Lucy again, asked, Then this should be a newcomer. What would you like to drink? Oh, don't be so troublesome, Miss Li Sana. Lucy waved his hands again and again. For Li Sana, Lucy also knows something. As the guild's Kanban girl, she is also the signature beauty in the guild. As a result, Li Sana has been involved in many of the covers of Magic Weekly. Hee. The newcomer is unexpectedly cute. Li Sana smiled slightly. Then he brought a glass of the popular juice and handed it to Lucy. Thank you very much, by the way. My name is Lucy. Please give me more advice in the future. Lucy took the juice from Li Sana with both hands. Then he bowed slightly and introduced himself. Don't be so polite. Just follow your heart at Fairy Tale, and everyone won't care about any rules. Luo Xingchen on the side spoke up. Brother Xingchen is right. Since you are here at Fairy Tale, you are a family. If you treat your family so politely, everyone will be sad. Li Sana explained. Family, Lucy sat in his seat thoughtfully. The roaring continued. Kana, who was drinking quietly, couldn't take it anymore. It's so noisy. How can I drink in peace like this? She took out a card from her bag with 2 fingers and looked at the group of people who were fighting. You, give me enough time. 35, the magic power is activated, and the magic circle unfolds on the back of the card. I'm really on fire. Gray crossed his hands, and a cold air filled his hands. Oh, 35 Elfman raised his arm that had turned into a beast. Anger surged to his forehead. What a bunch of troublesome guys. Loki turned the ring in his hand. The flames clinged to Natsu's hands. Let the horses come. 99 Mirajane's white hands transformed into demonic arms. With a wicked smile on the corner of his mouth. Look at me. All of you will be beaten up. Hey, has it developed to the point of fighting with magic? Lucy was sweating while sitting at the bar. Really, Brother Xingchen, please clear the field. Seeing that everyone is getting more and more unrestrained. Li Sana put her hands on her waist and puffed out her mouth in annoyance. He said to Luo Xingchen, who was beside him, Put the milk glass in your hand on the table. Luo Xingchen had intended to forcefully end the battle, but it seems to have noticed something. The turbulent magic power returned to stability. He sat down again and raised his glass. Forget it this time. The voice just fell. A huge figure stepped directly into the middle of the battlefield. A roar full of anger resounded in everyone's ears. Hurry up and stop, you bunch of idiots. It's huge. The cup in Lucy's hand slid to the ground. He stared at the huge figure in astonishment. Not only Lucy, almost everyone at the scene stopped their movements. Even Mira Jane, who has always been fearless, pouted. Let go of Waka, who was beaten into a pig's head. But accept someone. Ah, seeing you scared like this, I won this game. Natsu wasn't finished yet. I was stomped on by Makarov. I don't know my life and death. Suddenly, the scene fell silent. Lucy was in a cold sweat, standing in the spot bewildered. President, welcome back. Li Sana greeted with a smile. President? Is it that big? Lucy felt his legs shaking. Lucy's exclamation caught Makarov's attention. Huh, new here? Makarov asked. A loud voice echoed throughout the entire guild. Yes, yes. Lucy was even a little incoherent in shock. Makarov let out a dull cry. Lucy froze in place. Tears seemed to flow from his eyes at any moment. But then, Makarov's body began to shrink slowly, down to Lucy's knee-height dwarf. Yo, please advise. Makarov raised his head and extended his hand in greeting. So small. And you said he was the president? Lucy seemed a little confused by the sudden turn. Out aloud. That's right, this is the president of our guild, Mr. Makarov. Li Sana explained thoughtfully. Hey, Makarov squatted down slightly, then jumped up abruptly. Then it hit the railing on the second floor. Cough, cough. He coughed twice to hide his embarrassment. Makarov adjusted his body and stood on the second floor. You guys have caused trouble for me again. He glanced at everyone in the circle. Makarov took out a shred of paper documents and said, "Let me take a good look. How many documents did the council send? All are here to complain." B. Chapter 97. This is the Wizard of Fairy Tale. First of all, it's Gray. Gray tensed when his name was read. Makarov looked at the list in his hand and said in a deep voice, "It's fine until you catch the smuggling gang. But why are you dangling naked in the street afterwards?" In the end, he stole someone else's underwear hanging outside and escaped. Gray sneered awkwardly. "It's not. It doesn't seem good to be naked on the street. Then you still take off." Elfman groaned. "You're not too good either." Makarov brushed Elfman away. Continue to say, "You kid, you actually use violence against your protected object when you perform your mission?" Because he said that men need education, so I couldn't help but... Elfman scratched his face in embarrassment. Kana went to a certain pub and drank 15 barrels of wine by falsely reporting the funds, and finally reported the funds for the council. Loki, the granddaughter of Mr. Reggie's provocation in the Senate, and a performance agency also asks you to compensate them for their losses. Makarov bowed his head bitterly. Next is Natsu. Destroyed the Devon thieves, but destroyed 7 houses, and you got the long-established clock tower in Julie Village. The churches in Phrygia were burnt, and the Nolly Creek Canyon Observatory had to cease operations due to a collapse. Even the port of Harjan was half destroyed by you. Natsu did almost everything in Magic Weekly. Lucy's eyes widened. There are others. Makarov seemed to be shaking with anger. His eyes swept across the crowd below. In the end, he locked in a black-haired figure in the crowd. "It's you in the end, Xingchen." On the way to perform the mission, the Donnellan Peak was frozen. That place is a planting base for planting various tropical plants. Makarov's voice just fell. The people below also began to discuss quietly. Sure enough, Xingchen either doesn't cause trouble, and if he does, he will cause a big one. The whole mountain is frozen. This kind of thing, only Xingchen can do it. What a great young man. Listening to the discussion, several crosses popped up on Makarov's forehead. Is this something to be admired? You are in this group of people, and I have been scolded by the council members all day long. Maybe it was because he was a little angry seeing Makarov. At this moment, everyone in the guild seemed to have fallen into silence for a while. Lucy didn't even dare to come out. Looking at Makarov's trembling body, Lucy thought that was the harbinger of an impending explosion. However, the document in Makarov's hands burst into flames. Let those guys in the council eat rocks. Makarov tossed the burning document. Then Natsu jumped up and caught it with his mouth. Lucy wondered. Listen up. Makarov looked at the crowd below. All supernatural powers are born in common sense. Magic is not the power of miracles, but the power that is born when it is fused with the airflow in our body and the airflow in nature. This is through mental power and concentration, not. Magic can only be formed by injecting all of one's own soul. He raised his palm and slammed it. Don't care about the eyes of those idiots above. 35, and don't be afraid of those guys in the Senate. Makarov raised his right hand high. The index finger and thumb are at 90 degrees, and the other 3 fingers are bent. His palms turned towards him, and his voice became more and more excited. Go on the path you believe in. This is the Wizard of Fairy Tale. Makarov's words seemed to ignite everyone's enthusiasm. They all held up the same gesture. There was a deafening cheer. As a newcomer, Lucy didn't quite understand what the gesture represented, but emotions are contagious. Look at the smiles on the faces of the people around you. Lucy laughed too. He simply learned the postures of the crowd and raised his non-standard gestures above his head. For a time, the cheers from Fairy Tale seemed to spread throughout Magnolia. At the Fairy Tale bar, holding the guild's coat of arms, Lysana looked at Lucy and said, "Is the color and location determined?" Lucy nodded affirmatively and stretched out the back of his right hand. It's been decided long ago. It's here. It's pink. Hum. The seal fell, and the pink fairy crest appeared on the back of Lucy's hand. Okay, now you're part of Fairy Tale too, Lysana said with a smile. Wow. Lucy looked at the back of his hand in surprise. Looking at Luo Xingchen, who was sitting at the bar, he quickly said, Xingchen, look, look. I also have the coat of arms of Fairy Tale. Congratulations, Lucy. Luo Xingchen turned around and responded. Just when Lucy wanted to say something, Makarov's shouts interrupted her. Xingchen, come here. I have something to do with you. Hear Makarov's cry. Luo Xingchen sighed. I guess it's some kind of drudgery. Shaking his head, he drank the milk in the cup. Luo Xingchen stood up and walked towards Makarov. Seeing that Luo Xingchen was gone, Lucy was immediately bored, glancing around. Then he saw the only Nat Su who was still familiar. After thinking about it, I walked over. The other side. Luo Xingchen came to Makarov and sat down. Be the first to speak. By the way, don't you have any other designated tasks for me to do? Let's talk about it first. I just came back recently, and I'm very tired, so I don't plan to take any tasks now. Looking at Luo Xingchen, Makarov shook his head helplessly. Don't tell me. This time it's really not a job or anything. The corners of his mouth slowly raised a smile. Makarov spoke again. This time, it's for you to relax. Relax. Luo Xingchen looked at Makarov suspiciously. Obviously, he did not believe Makarov's sudden kindness. There's really no way. Seeing this, Makarov sighed. Actually, in 2 days, the president of the local guild will hold a regular meeting. Come with me. 99. Regular meeting of local alliance presidents? Luo Xingchen murmured. He shook his head decisively. Don't go. Why? Makarov looked at him in confusion. I still know about this. What kind of regular meetings are you? It's just a party for you to drink and brag. Luo Xingchen replied. A gathering of your old people. Why am I, a young man, following along? And, said here. Luo Xingchen paused for a moment and continued. Aren't you afraid of Laxus complaining if you take me there? This guy has become more and more rebellious lately. Speaking of this, Makarov fell silent. Alas, 1.1 picked up the glass on the table and drank it. It's for this reason that I don't want to expose Laxus to these things. He looked at the empty wine glass. Makarov's eyes gradually blurred. That guy's ambitions are getting bigger and bigger recently. I'm really afraid that Laxus will be completely blinded by this expanding ambition. With a self-deprecating smile, Makarov looked at Luo Xingchen. You may not believe it when you say it, even as a grandfather with a blood relationship. I'm afraid I don't know him as well as you. 35, so I think if anyone can pull Laxus back, it's only you, Xingchen. His tone was not as sonorous as he used to be, even with a hint of weakness. When it comes to the Laxus problem, it seems that Makarov is no longer the leader of the famous Fairy Tale Guild. It was a man who could only watch his child fall into the abyss, and it's just a helpless old man. Chapter 98. Routine meeting. The returning female knight. Look at Makarov at the moment. Luo Xingchen suddenly smiled. Don't worry, that guy just never wanted to admit his heart. 99, if that day ever comes. I'll bring him back. This is Luo Xingchen's promise. And getting this promise also relieved Makarov's dangling heart. Said, however, I still hope that day will never come. Maybe. Luo Xingchen didn't say much. By the way, I was originally talking about going to the Guild Alliance, but it ended up being involved again. Makarov shook his head. The old eyes looked at Luo Xingchen. How? Come with me in 2 days. Can I say no? Then I'll just bang my head in here. What else can I say? That's it, old man who loves face. 2 days passed in a flash. Luo Xingchen, as usual, did not come to the guild until noon. Pushing open the door, there was the usual noise coming from the pavilion. However, most of the noise was directed at Macau. After a little bit of understanding, Luo Xingchen understood. The cause of the incident was that 2 days ago, Macau's son Romeo found the guild, because his father accepted the crusade task. So much so that I haven't been back for almost a week. The young Romeo immediately guessed that something might have happened to his father, so he rushed to the guild for help. At that time, this incident happened to be heard by Natsu. Maybe it's the same reason as my own experience. Natsu didn't want Romeo to be his second self, so he greeted happy and headed straight for Macau's mission location, a plan to bring Macau back. Halfway through, Lucy also worried that Natsu was frizzy because Lysana was doing things. There's a good chance that Macau's mission will be screwed up. Therefore, I asked Lucy to follow. It was also Lucy's first mission after becoming a wizard. As a result, something happened to Macau when dealing with a giant monkey creature called Vulcan, because there are too many. After knocking down 19, because of his carelessness, Macau was accepted by the 20th monster. After that, Natsu and others arrived and rescued Macau. It has to be said that in the magical world, the strength of this creature, named Vulcan, is not low. And as a wizard, Macau, who can defeat 19 such monsters alone, the strength is definitely not weak. Speaking of Lucy, the girl who just joined the guild, the experience is a bit magical. After rescuing Macau with Natsu, I don't know where a version came from. It is said that Lucy defeated the giant monkey Vulcan with just one little finger. Moreover, it seems to be because this version is quite interesting, so it spreads very widely. So much so that Lucy was targeted by a certain eldest sister in the guild the next day. Mira Jane was about to take on the mission at the time. After hearing about Lucy's rumors, he excitedly pulled Lucy on and went on the mission together. According to her words, that is, such a powerful person must not be allowed to join the Urza faction. Yes, that's right, Urza Pai. Mainly Natsu and Gray, two people who have a good relationship with Urza. Both were classified by Mira Jane into the Urza faction. In order not to let the Urza faction grow, Mira Jane is a sincere invitation to Lucy. And Lucy was also moved by this sincerity and heartedly agreed. So Mira Jane took Lucy and Elfman on a mission. It is estimated that we will be back tomorrow. Is the star here? Makarov, who was sitting at the bar, spotted Luo Xingchen drain the beer from the glass. Makarov stood up slowly. His face was a little rosy because of the drink. After a drink, Makarov looked at Luo Xingchen. Since you're here, let's go. By the way, President, are you walking steadily like this? Luo Xingchen looked suspiciously at Makarov's drunken look. Boy, you underestimate me too much. Makarov waved his hand. It doesn't matter to show yourself. Looking at the bar, Makarov said, then, Lysana, after I—
No more novels? Take part in the voting. The most requested novels and those with the most likes will be chosen for publication on euroaudiobooks.com. There, I can upload as much as I want without the risk of receiving a strike. Our 18 novels and other content that exceed what is morally acceptable are only published on Patreon or the free novels page. Remember, the site is funded by donations on Ko-fi and Patreon memberships.